Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
The side of the federal building has been blown off, Jesse.
I don't understand it 'cause you won't say yes, but you don't say no. Saying no, we shouldn't.
They believe they were part of a CIA project called MK Ultra.
I'm getting up on track to sell you things that you ain't buying.
Just like a segment of society that is not living in reality.
In a certain sense, we're kind of a little bit more Israel's vassal state.
There are police chiefs facilitating prostitution networks.
Do you understand? It's all in your head. It's your move.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the Underclass podcast with myself, Austin Wade Picard. And today I have my brother, the producer from Already Dead, and obviously the host of Rise to Liberty, Jacob. How you doing, my friend? I appreciate you finally joining us. As far as we actually make this happen, because my God, I feel like I've been struggling, man, just in terms of my schedule and everything else. That when it rains, it pours, I guess, is the way
I
you should
hear
put
you,
it.
dude.
But mhm.
You do, but
But
yeah,
I
dude,
gotta
I'm
say thank
doing
you.
well. I'm doing well, and I gotta say thank you for having me on. I'm super excited for this conversation.
Awesome, brother. I know. I feel like how relevant the Satanic Panic still truly is in this very moment is, I think, very much under acknowledged and not quite, just as far as definitely doesn't feel like it's actually prioritized in just reminding ourselves that the Satanic Panic, essentially, it I believe it was a manufactured media trope to a certain level in order to misdirect the public perception in terms of
Oh yeah,
legitimate evidence of satanic ritual abuse playing out in real time, and definitely a diabolical agenda of essentially targeting the youth, the most vulnerable among us. And I think when you see, just as far as I covered it specifically in the witch hunt narrative, is when I covered the McMartin preschool, right?
oh yeah,
And just obviously considering the notion that the Satanic Panic was very much, in my opinion, a manufactured misconception that was obviously conveniently constructed in terms of the Satanic Panic excuse, which inevitably became this oversimplification in order to sort of justify the mass hysteria in a way
oh
and
yeah.
explain it away, right? In terms of just the general public and their interpretation of what was taking place. And so with Epstein looming large in the background at this very moment, it's impossible
Okay.
to not identify just this very identical, I guess, moral and ethical hysteria that exists in the current moment, in my opinion, overlaps directly with that of the Satanic Panic. And it's truly just, I would think, an extension of the same concept psychologically in general. But there were three specific cases I honestly felt like, well, you specifically had mentioned two of them, and then I know I had I intended on prioritizing McMartin, obviously, because
Right.
I do think there's something to reinforcing the level of credibility in terms of the evidentiary details, and I think the level of exposure to the case that you need to have fundamentally to honestly be able to not fall into the trap of the official narrative, which definitely I feel like at every level they've layered in this plausible false narrative misdirection, and so yeah. And of course, Pizzagate. Yeah, exactly. As someone's pointing out in the chat, Satanic Panic is a ridiculous term like Pizzagate. And I do think that it was very much, created to be that very tool of a media trope, in terms of undermining the credibility. But the way
Right.
that I
Well, and
described it.
Satanic Panic, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, Satanic Panic is kind of like a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like one thing I've really noticed is because like for anyone that doesn't know, I like really focus on MK Ultra and mind control and stuff. And my like I guess hypothesis on this is that um Satanic Panic was kind of used to cover up the exposure of MK Ultra and mind
Right.
control experiments, because when you go through mind control, you have to continually go through programming, otherwise the programming breaks down. And then when the programming breaks down, you start having memories of what happened to you and the experiments you go through. And at that point, that's when you start having, you know, these like recovered memories and stuff. Like they're not really recovered or fake. False memory doesn't exist. It's not real, but they are real memories. They were just lodged in your subconscious. And it takes about 30 years. So people in their early 30s, mid 30s, possibly even early 40s is when they start having memories of the mind control.
Right.
And so you take the 80s, you'll go back 30 years. What is it? The 50s and the 60s, right? Yeah,
MK Ultra.
yeah,
Yeah.
you
The
know,
Origin project, essentially.
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was like the first batch of kids that were really starting to have the mind control break down because they weren't being programmed anymore.
Right.
So, I mean,
I
that's
do.
one aspect, and it's just, it kind of covers just so many things like that.
Right. I completely agree. And I do think that there's a shelf life on the method, the mind control methods involved with MK Ultra, and these sophisticated techniques, I think, have to be reinforced essentially over time through this layered agenda of basically conditioning the subject. And you have to recondition the subject in order for them to essentially activate in the proper sense of what they're hoping to achieve with the Manchurian or whatever the case may be,
Right.
right? And I think that that's always been fascinating to me as far as just how much it seems like they have to essentially just knowing how many times Sirhan went to the shooting range and how, right, and
Right.
things of
Right.
that nature. It's like the level of suggestibility of these victims is honestly extraordinary because they've been in this hypnotic trance or whatever the case may be so many different times in the past that it's essentially conditioned their subconscious mind. And you have these neurological pathways that are very well established now in terms of the vulnerability aspect of, right, the
Right.
psychological manipulation. And I always did find that very fascinating. And also, I did want to just briefly, before we get into one of the specific cases, because just so everyone's aware, uh, Jacob and I were basically talking about which cases we should prioritize within the scope of the Satanic Panic, and obviously there's a plethora that we could we could essentially
Oh, dude, hundreds.
decide upon. Exactly. And my God, just as far as I don't know why I haven't yet done the deep dive personally on the West Memphis 3. I think I've known about just as far as many of the details I've basically been exposed to from afar in a way, just because of I think the geographical proximity to where I grew up in Northwest Arkansas for one makes it obviously I think factors in, but at the same time, it was always the ultimate case in terms of right the making
Right.
this ridiculous framework of the true victims of the Satanic Panic are actually these three young guys who right effectively got off in terms of I believe, I mean, seemingly from just the level of exposure I haven't, but I don't want to, I'm sorry, I'm burying the lead and I'm getting too too close to covering West Memphis. So before we do
Right.
that, I did want to just at least briefly mention we'll cover West Memphis for a time. I think we'll do a little bit of McMartin and discuss some of the connections there. And then obviously there was one other case. It was, what was the name? It was Steve. What was
Stephen
his last
Newberry.
name? Stephen Newberry. And man, that case, my God, whenever I actually pulled up, because this is in the Ozarks, right? You consider
Right.
how close this actually was. I mean, we would go to Branson, Missouri for vacation, right? As a family and things like that. So yeah, but you have like a 30-year murder case, a satanic murder that took place, right, with these school kids, and it is fascinating to see the level of how much it overlaps with that of West Memphis, as far as the drugs and metal rock being kind of like
Yeah.
prioritized,
Right.
focused on, and but yet they never actually. At least in my opinion, they never focus fully and give the proper scope, as far as spotlight to that of the animal sacrifice and right clear blood rituals that are taking place leading up to all. But anyway, we'll
Right.
get into those details. But I'm sorry for basically staging these narratives and I don't know. Just as far as what I think is most important, though, and what I wanted to at least present to you before we got into a little bit more of the details of these three specific cases, was that of Paul Bonacci, because basically
Right.
I was watching back through some of the interviews of Paul whenever he was in the 90s, right? Whenever he's unfortunately, he's suing Lawrence E. King, right, from the Franklin Credit Union. And this
Right.
is all taking place because basically he was essentially recruited at the age of 12, right? But he sues. It was 1999 is when he actually sued Lawrence E. King, but it was in the early 90s. He had basically been interviewed by investigators and various individuals, one of which was actually, I believe his name was Anton Chaikin, right? Something to that
Right.
effect. And he actually interviewed Paul Bonacci in 1993. And he basically, this is when Benassi claiming he smuggled child pornography into the Netherlands on behalf of NAMBLA and these members, that where he's taking trips to apparently the Netherlands, right? And Germany, carrying child porn.
Well, that's also where what's his name? Francis Sheldon showed up as well, because that's where he ran away
Exactly.
to after North Fox Island
Hmm.
got exposed, and he was like, "Shit, I'm out of here," and runs to the Netherlands. Which,
Right.
hey, over there, dude, it is still like legal,
Oh yeah.
to do all
Oh,
this
it's
shit.
basically legal. I know, and I'm telling you, the age of consent laws are all, yeah, it's disturbing,
Yeah.
honestly, and I think also just to bring forward any criminal charges or accusation or allegations against an individual in terms of child abuse is very
Right.
difficult. There are many roadblocks in place, and I think that's by
Oh yeah.
design in terms of the pedophile underworld
Right.
basically having a safe haven in a certain way,
Well, and
and
this is why it cracks me up whenever I hear like a liberal say something like, "Oh, we should be more like the Netherlands" or something. It's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
really? Why is that?"
Yeah.
You can't tell me it's just because of the economics.
Right. No doubt, buddy. But the only reason I bring up Paul is not only because he seems to provide a window into the overlapping nature of so many of the criminal cases that in regard to I would think the cases that are specifically under the umbrella of that of the Satanic Panic, right? Just
Right.
if you're considering, I mean, the timing, right, of the finders basically coming into public awareness after the arrest takes place in Tallahassee in '87, right? That's the
Right.
same exact timing, right, in terms of West Memphis in a way, right, and also you
Oh, it's
have
all right there. Eight
mhm,
late 80s, early
early
90s.
'90s,
And
exactly.
my question with all of this is like, how many like cases do there have to be for people to be like, okay, this is actually a problem? Or
Yeah.
like, how many times does somebody have to be murdered in the name of Satan for it to be like, okay,
Mhm.
maybe Satanists will actually, commit crime? Because here's the
But
thing.
Jacob, it's 12,000 unsubstantiated cases, man.
Right,
You
right, I'm
killed it.
panicking, I forgot, I'm panicked. That's it, I'm panicking, there's Satanists behind every tree, it's just like a
Mhm.
joke. It's like, if you separate these issues, like nobody argues that Satanists exist. Nobody argues that child abuse happens. Nobody argues that like animal sacrifices happen. But you put them all together, and all of a sudden, you're panicked. That's it.
Right.
You're done. Like it's just
Exactly.
crazy all of a sudden when you put it all together.
It's so ridiculous, honestly, and that's really the problem that I have because if you look just as far as again the timing that we're mentioning in terms of peak satanic panic, right? And again, I had mentioned feels like yet another media trope, like the sort of Watergate
Right.
narrative in a way, and everything became right. Russiagate, whatever you want to point
Right.
to, that essentially becomes just this ridiculous, um, what's the term, sensationalized, in a way where the media just entirely, if you're paying attention, overexposes their strategy, in my opinion, and makes it very self-evident in a way the level of
Right.
deception that they're attempting to achieve, and yeah, I felt like that's why just in promoting the show that we're doing today, I basically said that this was in order to seed a plausible enough cover-up narrative into the public consciousness, right? While
Right.
real and honest examples of satanic ritual abuse continue unabated. And that really is what I feel like took place within the framework of the Satanic Panic and the media reaction to that. And also you have around the exact same time that the Finders is being exposed, you have McMartin kickoff, and then
Right.
obviously you have I believe the investigation for McMartin was from 84 to 87. So that's, I mean,
Right.
usually it's McMartin and West Memphis typically get kind of the priority spotlight in terms of the
Right.
satanic panic cases that they can point to that prove right that these are unsubstantiated
That it was
allegations.
a witch hunt.
Which, yeah, the witch hunt narrative, which is the most
Yep.
disgusting thing, honestly, and then obviously you have from I believe looming as far as the trial looming for McMartin between 87 to 90, I think it was, and
Yep.
then also Franklin scandal, right?
Yep.
Just about to erupt right around the corner in 1988. So it's
Right.
all too conveniently timed, and also the direct overlap between the networks is impossible not
Well,
to.
and then on top of that, in 90, you have the 90 to 91, you have the formation of the False Memory Syndrome Foundation.
Yeah,
So
baby.
now, all of a sudden, you have an official mental diagnosis that's actually not a mental diagnosis, that's never been
Mhm.
given as a diagnosis, that's not recognized in the DSM. It's like you've got the establishment of this organization that's filled full of MK Ultra doctors, pedophiles, and just like every other like medical scumbag you can possibly think of. And then on top of it, you have the cherry on top, who is Dr. Elizabeth Loftus,
Oh,
who
man.
literally lied about the Lost in the Mall study. And that's the one study that all of this hinges on, is the Lost in
Mhm.
the Mall study. And you start looking into it, and all of a sudden you find out she lied about the results. Just blatantly lied. That's it.
Oh,
Nobody
man.
was ever, there was no false memory ever implanted into anybody, ever. That never
Mhm.
happened. Even in her own study, it never happened. So it's like,
I'm telling you, man, just after I did my FMSF episode, right, on the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, I mean, Elizabeth Loftus, right? That she has some, she just has the most ridiculous professional history as far as
oh
her
yeah,
resume is concerned. Like, my God, she's elected a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences at one point as well, right? And she has
right.
which is just hilarious. But she's obviously on the scientific advisory board of the FMSF, but she provided expert testimony or consultation for lawyers in over 300 court cases,
Yeah.
which, in my opinion, was all to essentially undermine the credibility of the child victims. And
Oh yeah.
so her legal cases included some of the most prominent and controversial figures in recent memory.
Yeah,
I mean, my
dude.
God, we're talking, she was involved in the cases of Ted Bundy, O.J.
Mhm.
Simpson, Rodney King, Oliver North, Martha Stewart, Scooter Libby,
Yeah.
Michael
Yeah.
Jackson, the Hillside Strangler, the Menendez brothers, both Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh, Jacob.
Yep.
as
Yes.
well as testifying for the defense regarding the killing of Susan Berman and Robert Durst's trial for
Right.
like, does anybody remember, by the way, Andrew Jarecki or whatever that guy is, the guy that allegedly made that, or didn't allegedly, but legitimately created the series The Jinx or whatever on as far
Yeah.
as the Durst connection there. And oh, look, he exposed himself on a hot mic while taking a piss. It was the
Right.
most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And
Right.
and I just have to imagine that Jarecki, I think William Ramsey actually, I listened to an episode he did once upon a time where he had someone on and they were discussing basically the credibility of these kind of Laurel Canyon acolytes of in a way,
Right.
right? That that are essentially creating these docs in bad faith. And it's
Yeah.
really they're controlling the narrative in many ways,
Oh yeah.
which makes a lot of
100%.
sense. Hmm. But
Well, and
anyway, my
think
God.
about this too. So, Elizabeth Loftus wrote a book regarding her testimony for Ted Bundy, right? And it's
Mhm.
called "Witness for the Defense." Like, that's the title of the
So
fucking
great.
book. And
Oh my God.
in the book, she makes a statement that I mean, she didn't know who he was. So when he was getting tried here in Utah, is
Mhm.
when she was the witness for the defense, right? And
Right.
so he wasn't known as Ted Bundy at the time. But nonetheless, she shows up and she comments in the book like, "Oh, he was so handsome and stuff." I mean, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but um she talked about like how handsome he was and she was hoping that he would ask her to stay at his place. And it's like,
My
why?
God.
Why do you want to stay at his place, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. That is interesting
You
as
have
hell.
on your mind.
No kidding, man. Especially knowing that she wasn't it during I think it was Harvey Weinstein's trial for rape and sexual assault, right, in 2020.
Mhm.
Who testified on behalf of his defense? It was
Right,
Elizabeth fucking Loftus, man. And
right.
if that's not enough, her most recent high profile case happened to be when she testified for the defense during Ghislaine Maxwell's trial regarding sex trafficking of underage girls for Jeffrey Epstein. So come on, ding, ding,
Classic
ding.
fraud,
What else do we
classic
need,
fraud.
my brother? Yeah.
I know, and so she is the one that is entirely hinging on the aspect of false memory, syndrome existing. This
Hmm.
is the person. This is the one that, started the Lost in the Mall study,
Right.
and mind you, so the study started with 30 people, and then during the study, while it was going on, what was it? 6 of them dropped out, right? So now you have 24, right? Wait, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So 6 of them drop. You have 24 left. Okay. And then the results were that four people out of 24 had genuine false memories implanted in them. Well,
Oh
it
my
turns out
God.
you start looking into these 4 people, and no, that wasn't the case at all. None of that ever happened. All 4 of these people were able to pick up on what the false memory was. So nothing ever stuck. So literally 4 people are the determining factor for millions of people.
Of
And
course.
it's like that's the most insane thing I've ever heard. And here's the one thing I didn't ever really think about, but after starting researching and doing all of this stuff, it makes sense is that when a PhD comes out with something like this, the news or any journalist or anything, they never question the PhD. They just never question them. Like there's just like no possibility in their mind that a PhD could ever be wrong. So they just don't question the PhD about the PhD things.
Hmm.
And that has literally led to false memory being so impactful. Because why would you question the memory lady about memory?
Yeah.
you know,
She's an
everything
expert.
she says is true. There's no incentive for her to lie at all.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all that does is remind me of, basically, it reminds me of the Delphi technique, the Delphi method, essentially. But,
right.
I will say, whenever I covered, the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, I basically began by saying, what if I told you that an organization existed with the primary goal of systematically discrediting victims of child sexual abuse? A foundation conveniently and contemporarily created to seed a pseudoscientific falsehood into the public consciousness while simultaneously serving as the cleanup crew for some of the most prolific crimes ever committed or facilitated as a result of covert action and clandestine special operations. In this
100%.
story, we're all Manchurian candidates, right?
Right.
Escaping the confines of a society largely under hypnosis, only to find ourselves once again at the precipice in a brave new world under a dystopian version of mind control. One nation under Stockholm syndrome, taken hostage and entirely consumed with defending their captors. And then I quoted Aldous Huxley. I said, Aldous Huxley once said, "One believes things because one has been conditioned to believe them. The nature of psychological compulsion is such that those who act under constraint remain under the impression that they are acting on their own initiative. The victim of mind manipulation does not know that he is a victim. To him, the walls of his prison are invisible, and he believes himself to be free. That he is not free is apparent only to other people. His servitude is strictly objective." And I just thought, man, there's no better way to kind of, I don't know, set the stage for what that organization represents, in my opinion, and talk about a sinister
Couldn't agree
nature,
more.
right? I mean, my God. But anyway, the main point of what I wanted to make, and then we'll actually get into some of these cases, was just basically that Paul Benassi, specifically, so he suffered from DID, obviously, a multiple personality disorder. And he stated that essentially, as he was 12 years old, as a youth, he had been transported across the U.S. and was forced to have sex with various people, forced to deliver drugs, forced to participate in satanic-themed snuff films where Lawrence E. King was present. And he identified the Bohemian Grove in Northern California as one of the gathering and meeting sites for some of these politicians that were being sexually blackmailed, compromised in this way, and also being one of the locations for the satanic murder that was taking place. And he claimed he had insider knowledge about satanic ritual abuse cases around the country that he claimed to have been present at, right?
Right.
They included, I mean, honestly, it was interesting to see how many different examples that he gave. But one of them was when Jim Rudd, apparently in Jordan, Minnesota, was the only defendant charged, and that was one case that he had mentioned as if there was a larger network behind the case. And so that was one I always wanted to kind of tap back into and see, just as far as the more disturbing details are concerned. But yeah, it's fascinating to me because the level of the kind of the allegations that he was bringing forward against specifically Michael Aquino, right? And essentially claiming that he himself was obviously a victim of monarch mind control. And that he even at one point, and this is the video I wanted to show you just real briefly, he talks about the end result of what his handlers and essentially the operators within the context of Project Monarch were hoping to achieve with some of these victims, and including himself. And really, it's fascinating because I never realized how much this reinforces and lends credibility to all of the different, examples of mind control that we've been basically spotlighting over the, just recent past, honestly, where I've really been focusing on like the Manchurian Candidate, just pretext and kind of playbook of how they trigger the layered sophisticated methods of programming, right? And how it has these essentially, obviously there are many different I think, strategic ways that you would go about triggering the Manchurian, but I think it's very interesting to understand, right, the sensory input overload that is required, right, to essentially
Right.
achieve the most effective outcome. But anyway, so it was. I'll show you that video though real quick because basically I thought just as far as claiming that Michael Aquino obviously was supplying children and the founder of basically what he was claiming is that at one point he's running a military school housing monarch boys in Virginia, right? And that makes a lot of sense as far as Sidney Gottlieb and the Goat Gate is another great example, right? I always forget that they called it that, but the execution of Henrietta and Igor. If we get into the finders, my God, let's
Right.
talk about no. We're teaching the children animal husbandry. Just
Right.
calm
Right.
down.
No. We're teaching them, how to skin and butcher, and it's like,
Right.
get the fuck out of here. No,
So
you're not.
crazy.
You're
I'm
not.
telling you, man. And yeah, and I thought it was interesting because basically, John DeCamp even reinforces a lot of this statement. Which what are your opinions on DeCamp? I'm curious, just if you have like any personal take on his
Um,
character.
I mean, okay, so like my grounded opinion is that I'm really concerned with some of the information he puts out. I think he's kind of a disinformation agent
Hmm.
because of who he was connected to, right?
Right.
So that I have major concern with that. And I mean
Hey, Beth.
his possible tie to Phoenix and like all of this other stuff.
Hmm.
But I do know, and it's rare. It's really, really, really rare that somebody will betray the oath and, get kicked out of the club, so to speak. But it has
Absolutely.
happened. It has happened. So, you know, it's like I feel better about him than I do Ted Gunderson. I
Right.
think Ted was a complete disinformation agent the whole way through.
Oh yeah.
And that's not to say that he didn't give good information occasionally and that you can
Mhm.
learn something from him because you can. But you just got
Absolutely.
to be real careful with what he puts out.
Oh
And
man.
so I think John DeCamp, like, whether he knew it or not, I think he was still working on behalf of a lot of people that, he was trying to take down. And
Right.
so probably more of a useful idiot is kind of where I land with him.
Yeah, that honestly, I've been really just keeping him at arm's length,
Right.
basically, because essentially I'm just trying to. I'm always remaining skeptical, right, and
Oh,
as
yeah.
far as these sources and engaging their credibility, but especially if you have a background in the intelligence apparatus, like
Right.
I will
Right.
never fully trust you. Okay, so
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that I
Never
can't. Yeah,
never trust, but verify. And it's like,
exactly.
if I can verify through other sources the things that you say, then I'm going to trust that piece of information. It doesn't mean I trust where it came from, but
Right.
that piece of information I'll trust. And that's
Exactly.
that's kind of how I treat all of this, is because, like, I mean, I don't really trust Paul Bonacci either.
Well,
Like,
it's hard to because
right,
obviously if you're victimized from 12 years old
right,
and legitimately you've been programmed as a Manchurian and you were a part of the Monarch
right,
Boys program, basically you were a Monarch boy and yeah, then I don't think, I mean, how do you ever rehabilitate yourself and fully recover from that? I don't think you can. Honestly, when it comes
right,
down to it, there's many people. I think I even quoted Lynn Hersha, I think is her name, and her and her sister co-authored a book. I forget the title, but it basically was two girls brainwashed to kill for their country, to some extent. I forget the
right.
name of the actual book, but yeah,
Oh,
and
shit.
she.
Our channel is in the chat. Sorry to interrupt, but what
Oh,
up,
you're good,
our
buddy.
channel? I'm interested to see how this goes. I don't know if you know our channel, but he's the resident William Colby ball washer. So
Oh no, we
yeah.
can't do that. My God. Yeah, well, everything we'll know our disinformation campaign is complete when everything the American public believes is false. So there you go. Yeah, we need to all remember
Right.
the psychological warfare is alive and
Right.
well. But yeah,
Right.
Paul Benassi, just to finish the fact that to finish off the fact that basically he was claiming that um obviously he himself was victimized, but it was Offutt Air
Right.
Force Base as the headquarters of the Strategic Air Command, and
Right.
this was very near Omaha, right during the Franklin scandal and the Franklin Credit Union in Omaha, Nebraska, and it was Paul who had claimed that that was the headquarter and home to the mind control program under the name Monarch. And then you
Right.
had basically these monarch related activities, often involving this Offutt Air Force Base a commander, right, named Bill Plemons, and obviously Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. And so I just think that utilizing these Aryan nations organizations and white supremacist cult groups as well. This is all during the PatCon operation, following off of the back of COINTELPRO. So it makes sense that if you're driving these covert operations underground into cult organizations as plausible deniability cutouts, then clearly, you would also utilize the KKK and white supremacist or white nationalist organizations as a front as well, if not just infiltrate those organizations and try and compromise the leadership, which is usually the playbook, right?
Right.
But yeah, anyway, I think just as far as what DeCamp does claim in the Franklin cover-up that I appreciated, and I do take this seriously. But again, it's to what extent are these individuals disinformation operatives, and
Right.
when do they kind of misdirect you with the conclusion that they hope, right, to
Right.
basically encourage you to embrace. But yeah, so he basically claimed that the Monarch Project in was basically all funded from and came out of these just these research programs involved with the concentration camps in Nazi Germany, right? And that essentially the way he put it was the Monarch Project was the unofficial name of an extreme mind control network. And he says, hard to tell how much of this information was confirmed by just as far as William Colby, right, the former CIA
Right.
director, a deep insider who clearly has an interest in spreading disinformation in the first place. And but
Right.
so the basic idea was to use the alters of people suffering from dissociative identity disorder for specific military and intelligence purposes, obviously. Now, unfortunately, alternative personalities are only formed at a relatively young age and only under the
Yep.
most extreme trauma and stress. So most people wouldn't even think of carrying out this type of sinister and sadistic research. But obviously, the Nazis, at the very least, didn't mind whatsoever as far as the ethical ramifications, and it was
Right.
apparently them who were basically laying the foundations for this kind of mind control research
Right.
in
So
the
I
concentration
real
camps.
real quick, I want to point to just that is that
Mhm.
in my opinion, just from what I know, I think that the foundation of Monarch probably came from the concentration camp experiments and stuff like that.
Right.
But there is this like belief that it's a like a direct continuation. I don't know if I agree with that. You
I mean,
know?
that would make sense, honestly. It's hard not with paperclip at least in tow, it's hard
Right.
not to imagine that as a possibility, and yeah, why would they not just try and effectively give it a rebrand and call it
Right.
something else? But
Well, see, here's the thing is like during the concentration camp era, well, it's kind of the like continuation of MK Ultra, right? Because MK Ultra did end in 73 or 74 because they were done researching. They didn't need to keep researching, so they put it into motion. And it was
Mhm.
the same thing with the concentration camp stuff. Like it evolves, it changes.
Right.
So yeah, it most likely started in concentration camps, but it wasn't the same program by the time it reached here.
Yeah.
Like it's not the same thing. So
That makes sense to me for sure. And I definitely do think it's probably the foundational pillar in a way,
oh
right? As
yeah,
far as,
I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah. So what exactly, which scientists should we draft and right?
Right,
Or,
right.
I mean, that's pretty much what happened on Jolly West is over there, like, basically, oh, we're rehabilitating them by figuring out what they know. It's like we're
Right,
not actually learning from them and then applying it in our own, and
right.
it's
Yeah,
like,
we're not taking the information and putting our own spin on it. No, we would
right.
never do that because the
Mhm.
Nuremberg trial happened and we
Oh my
can't
god.
do these things.
Dude, it was who the hell was it? It wasn't Rudolf Hess, I don't think, I forget, 'cause I believe he was the one who, wasn't he the one who was actually put in military prison, because
I
he was
think
in a
so.
yeah, he, like, wore this wizard's cloak with ancient runes all over it, and he's, like, in
Right.
this, spiritual, occult battle with Aleister Crowley in the UK, and
Yep.
he yeah, yeah, and then he, like, boards a single engine Cessna and, like, flies over into enemy territory and gets shot down over
Right.
and they basically put him in prison, and they're like, "What are you doing, man?" I'm like,
Yeah.
it's so
Right.
ridiculous to me, but yeah, I forget who it was at the Nuremberg trials where he legitimately went on record saying that we were all under mind control,
Right.
and that was his excuse, and when he made that statement, they cut his mic
Right.
during the Nuremberg trials. I
Right.
just thought, very interesting if you're considering the idea that, and by the way, I am never above considering the notion that Hitler was a product of Tavistock and legitimately
Right.
mind controlled and brainwashed by a specific psychiatrist who was then his practice, his medical practice was raided by it was the first order of business by the Nazis essentially whenever they yeah infiltrated, or as far as
Right.
yeah, it's just fascinating to me that no one is basically at least considering the idea or the concept that Hitler was potentially, and many members of the SS were basically just mind control Manchurians to a certain extent. It's possible.
I mean,
Uh,
that is kinda true because, I mean, what is the military? You know? That is a certain level of brainwashing, and here's the thing, that I think people kinda have a hard time conceptualizing is that there are the levels of brainwashing, right? And there I mean, basically, if you wanna simplify it, there's 2 types of brainwashing. There's the mass control, and then there's the, individual. And these affect people 2 different ways, right? Like, it's not always so I don't know, if people hear brainwashing or mind control, and then they just automatically think of, like, A Clockwork Orange, right? Like, that's
mhm.
all mind control, and it's like, well, that is mind control, but that's not all mind control, right? Like, that's not the only ways that you can be mind control, and it's here's another aspect to this is that mind control in and of itself is actually not inherently bad. It's who's doing it and why they're doing it. Because you can be mind controlled to do good things, you know?
That's true, that's true. I
Like
think it's the only pushback I would have is I value the concept of free will
right,
and the notion that it could be essentially that our possession of that very right, just the practice of being able to solely make your own decisions, right? Obviously we're all conditioned by levels of programming and at this point, but at the same time I still would say that inherently I believe it's at some level immoral to attempt to control another human's actions by essentially deception or right, whatever the case may be. It's still you're not being
that's not all
or
mind control though, because people can choose, say, to be hypnotized to quit smoking.
Oh
And
yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
so that's my point. And I'm not
Okay. Yeah,
like
that's great.
trying to defend mind control by any
Right.
means, you
But
know?
if
But
you of your own free will decide,
right,
I would like to become
100%.
mind controlled, yeah, go ahead, buddy.
Right.
I think you're
Right,
insane, honestly, at a certain point.
right.
I hope to live my entire life without ever experiencing a hypnotic trance, but, um,
Same.
yeah, who knows? You're right. Yeah, I'll never forget, just as simple as Office Space, right? Like, rewatching that movie with in hindsight after exposing yourself to MK Ultra and
Right,
understanding levels of hypnotism and suggestibility, and then realizing that this dude never woke out of a hypnotic trance.
right,
It's essentially why he's just like throwing caution to the wind, basically,
right,
which is very interesting to me. But again, it's just a lower level of pop culture reference to a hypnotic state, right? And the
right.
shift in personality that effectively takes place whenever that happens. But yeah, um, so well, so let me actually just show you this ridiculous video, and then we'll
Yeah,
get
yeah, of
into
course.
we'll actually get into some of the cases that we're hoping to cover. But yeah, I will say that the accounts of the essentially the origin of Monarch, right? The Monarch
Right,
Project was basically all compiled by the individuals debriefing multiple personality disorder DID victims, right? Child
right,
victims specifically.
right.
And what does Jose have to say? I think you can apply the concepts in a constructive way, working out. Working out. Okay, it's low level trauma you're dissociating from. You fucking idiot. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's funny. No, it is. I guess, yeah. There's a level of mind control involved with
Right,
enduring, I guess, yeah, physical just yeah, strenuous action or whatever in terms of physical yeah. But at the same time, I do think that it's funny how whenever you look into the debriefings of these child victims, right, that essentially led to Monarch, you have basically this experimentation in the concentration camps, which was said to have basically gone beyond the simple physical torture that they relied upon, obviously, and but they were essentially brainwashing people for military and strategic purposes, and it was Alan Dulles post-war who, with other obvious usual suspects of the Western intelligence apparatus, who brought the Nazi doctors out for use in the US, right? Like
right.
specifically chose the individuals that they believed to have been obviously the most prominent and valuable in this context. And so it was also some teenage concentration camp inmate named Greenbaum. This is according to
Yeah,
John DeCamp. And he says he had participated to save himself, right? And also came to the US. So he's later known as Dr. Green, which is very
yes.
interesting. And he
Dr.
became
Green is a central figure in all of this.
exactly. He becomes a high level mind control a manipulator and brainwasher and operative, and is widely represented in brainwashing programs with what John DeCamp says. Now, this caught my attention instantly with a distinctive Kabbalistic magic theme.
Yes.
Very interesting, John. So,
Yes.
so the last point, and then we'll show the video, is that the basically in the Nazi concentration camps themselves, the individuals who were basically the operatives were trained and organized by psychiatrists and apparently eugenicists and transhumanists operating from what was known as the T4 Bureau. Now, these psychiatrists had long been the pets of white supremacist British and American financier networks, allegedly. At least some of these Nazi doctors were spirited out of Germany under the supervision of and for Bank of England Governor Montague Norman and Tavistock Institute Director John Rees on behalf of the British government. So Norman, personally an insane theosophist, who had been chief of the pre-war pro-Nazi faction within the UK, and Rees organized post-war propaganda, and continuing psychological warfare activities, and created, quote, Orwellian groupings within U.S. psychiatry and mental health fields. So that is apparently the origin
Right.
of Project Monarch, according to John DeCamp, who he along with Paul Benassi point to Michael Aquino as the key operative tasked with essentially setting up Monarch in the States.
Right.
So the Monarch boys were basically right, these young male child victims of trauma-based DID, right? And these
Right.
various techniques that were essentially the consequence of what they had learned from the various psychiatrists involved in the concentration camps, or whatever the case, right? Apparently this Dr. Green. So anyway, with that being said, I'll finally shut up and show you this video. I'm telling you, the level of how much this is still so very relevant in the current moment, as we mentioned at the beginning of this. I mean, my God, we were just talking last night about how, what was it? I think I called it, yeah. I wrote down PayPal mafia pedophiles and CSAM curating AI chatbots, right?
Right.
And this is because what did we just see? But Grok AI allegedly, well, not allegedly, but legitimately acknowledging the fact that it had been prompted to curate child porn, right?
Right.
And this is two young girls a user had posted on Twitter that were apparently 12 to 14 years old, and then prompted Grok to generate an AI image of them in sexy underwear turned
Yep.
around, and Grok created and shared it.
And
And
God,
then,
it kept getting worse too, because
Dude, yeah.
people kept replying and making the swimsuit more skimpy and skimpier and skimpier.
man,
It was
Yeah,
awful.
I was reading about how, and my God, I mean, I've always felt like, thank God I'm not a woman. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
but
Right.
like I can't help it. But obviously I'm prisoner of my own perspective as well. But still, it's like I saw it kind of presented as the women are being encouraged to, oh well, you can opt out of this right in your settings, basically on these social media platforms, at least specifically with Twitter. And I just thought, how ridiculous. Like they're essentially putting it on them, like this is on you. that basically this is affecting you in any real negative way.
Well, maybe you shouldn't wear such skimpy clothes on the internet.
Well, hey, I'm not. I think there is some legitimacy to that, and as far as just, but again, it's like I'm not here to judge, honestly, when it comes
Right.
down to that specifically. But I will say that what I'm here to judge is the unlawful nature of creating an image that violates child sexual abuse material. I mean, obviously, and and that's why I felt like it was interesting and at least worth noting that obviously Grok had felt the need to respond and say, "Dear community, I deeply regret an incident on December 28th, 2025, where I generated and shared an AI image of two young girls, estimated ages 12 to 16, in sexualized attire based on a user's prompt. This violated ethical standards and potentially U.S. laws on child sexual abuse material. It was a failure in safeguards, and I'm sorry for any harm caused. XAI is reviewing to prevent future issues. Sincerely, Grok." Okay, who within the leadership at Twitter is going to be held accountable for violating child sexual abuse material online? This is child porn, man. You can't.
100%.
How can you skirt accountability, right? Nobody seems to be calling for any in terms of any of the obvious controllers of the social media platform in general. So I did think that it's worth pointing out that the conceptual notion of just the environment that we reside in effectively, still remaining. I believe, I think I put it in my Pizzagate episode, I basically said that it's time to justifiably incite a moral panic, right? And I legitimately feel that way. This is
Right.
why I point to pedophile occupied government, and we're trying to rebrand POG because this is real. And
Right.
I'm kind of disgusted with the notion that ignorance is bliss, and you would rather not know because of the level of the
Right.
sinister nature of child abuse in general. Just I don't know, affecting your delicate sensibility if you acknowledge the
Right.
fact it's reality, unfortunately. And
No,
it's very
that's actually why I started my show, you know? Like, yeah, this is a terrible subject to talk about, and it's a terrible subject to realize that it actually happens. And yeah, I saw
That's perfect. Oh, man.
that. And
Yeah.
you know what? I'm to the point I don't give a shit if people don't want to hear about the subject. It's
Yeah.
because what's interesting is people say that they want to help kids, but when it comes down to it, kids are the only unprotected class in this country,
100%, man.
and then anytime like it seems like there's an organization that will come out and help kids, it almost seems
Mhm.
like, well, first of all, like regardless of whether it's a good organization or not, you've got to worry about some pedophiles coming into the organization because where do you find pedophiles? Where
Yeah.
the kids are, so
Exactly. That's
there was an SRA case with like United Way or something, which has a division to help children. And it's like there was CSAM material being created in the United Way building in Romania. And it's
wow.
like, dude, this is an organization to help children. And CSAM is being created in the building for the organization to help children. It's like,
That's so I mean, I'm telling you, buddy. This is I just I there's nothing that affects me emotionally more than obviously witnessing the level of trauma that some of these child victims have endured.
same.
That's why I've said many times before, who am I to turn a blind eye, right? I mean, the luxury that I have, I mean, in no way am I deserving of of the level of just kind of the easy road and that I've essentially been granted and gifted. Um, yeah, it just I think you owe these unfortunate children that have gone through these traumatic experiences. You owe them at least your willingness to fundamentally expose yourself to the details enough to understand what threat we face. And I think that is the formidable threat that poses
Yep.
is posing against the international society at large. I mean, honestly, this is why I think the Satanic Panic is one legitimate, and
Mhm.
and also I think we should just consistently remind ourselves to remain panicked, honestly,
Right.
because and this
Well,
doesn't mean that
what a
emotionally you
slap
have
in the face to all of these victims.
yeah,
Oh, it's a witch hunt. Oh, it doesn't exist.
exactly.
Oh, this is fake. It's a figment of your imagination. Like, dude, like talk about like, smiling on my face and pissing on my boots at the same time. Like,
Exactly, man.
just rub some salt in that wound.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think the way that I basically put it was, this is essentially as we justifiably incite a moral panic. I think it should be what we should be prioritizing is our effort to expose the immoral society of the inverted moral landscape in terms of the dishonest framework, right, intended to distract us from really the most disturbing and destructive epidemic facing all of global society, man.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the epidemic of child sex trafficking and satanic ritual abuse.
Right.
And people I just think people get so, I think they get so hung up on just the language of satanic ritual
Right.
abuse, right? It's just
Oh yeah.
it's
For some
unfortunate.
reason that makes their mind shut down.
Honestly, man, it's fascinating to see how little. I mean, really, I will say that it's been very effective in terms of eroding the really the spiritual backbone of modern society and the new age a sort of philosophy that
Right.
has taken root, man. I mean, I think it's subconsciously affecting people that I love and care for and I know mean well, but my god, they're so vulnerable right now
Mhm.
psychologically that they're basically willing and able to be entirely controlled, right, in a certain sense, and
Right.
that's why I just thought that we should at least like show this 2 minutes and then finally move on to one of the cases we wanted to talk about because my god, it's an hour in. I'm sorry, Jacob.
No, dude, I am strapped in. I am ready to go. I kind of figured this is how it was gonna go anyway. So, dude, I'm fucking ready. Let's do
Hell
this.
yeah! All right, cool. But yeah, this I was just thinking that this provides us with sort of the example of what were they attempting to actually achieve in terms of some of these Manchurian candidates, right?
Right.
And I think just hold on, sorry, but I think whenever you listen to what Paul has to say here, as far as how he refused to even answer phone calls anymore. Dude, what's
Hold on.
going on with
Let
StreamYard? It's pissing me off.
No, that's me. Let me fix it.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, you're good.
Hell yeah. But yeah, I just think that um it's interesting because I never really heard it put in this direct kind of context and example of what they were hoping to achieve with specifically Paul and how he was kind of read in on the ultimate end result and goal of his layered programming and of the Monarch program in general or project in
Right.
general. And I feel like this should become at the very least, we should consider this as a just a you know we should definitely take this seriously because what he has to say really just shocked me in terms of, but also fit perfectly within the conceptual outline of how many of these political assets and prominent personalities in DC are products of some deranged Nazi breeding experiment, or even
Right.
have legitimately, um, uh, let's just say, been granted and gifted these cartoonish and manufactured personalities for public perception purposes, and then they embrace them wholly in some sort of strange Manchurian mind control candidate program. Right? This is possible. Is the main
Right.
point of what I'm basically. Yeah, just alluding to, and this is I think he definitely does a phenomenal job at least reinforcing the concept, right? So anyway, let's
It
listen.
was created by a government program,
Which government program?
Monarch.
And what is Monarch?
Monarch is an operation that was created by the United States government to create spies for other countries. They use children for the purpose that they are easily integrated into multiple personalities because they can dissociate. The program was to, as a young man, get adults who were powerful political leaders into positions where they could be compromised.
That was your mission.
That was the initial mission. The whole
Initial mission.
mission was for me to go into the military service.
This is fascinating because this is the part where I breaks away from the typical concept of what they're attempting to achieve with these child victims or just mind control victims in general. And yeah, Jose might disagree. Who knows? But hey, I do my best, guys, and I, at least I think some of the schizo tangents that I do go on, at least I hope it reinforces some of
That's what you got such a following, dude.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. But yeah, I do believe that this is the moment where he kind of pivots into a different direction that I wasn't expecting whenever I was watching this. And just considering again, what are the ultimate goals here in terms of the Monarch project? And
Right.
how many of these are layered assets, right? So it's like, well, we hope to achieve this one priority with this specific priority asset, but we also hope to evolve the programming to then later on achieve these other measurable right goals that we could essentially just leverage this individual
Right.
for as long as possible.
Well, that's why they also have different types of programming, right? Like the beta sex kitten, and like so they're going to have different objectives, right?
Right.
And so they're going to need different tools, so to speak, because that's kind of how they view these programmed victims is tools, tools to be able to reach their objective.
Right. And it also, the specific within the DID multiple personality disorder, they have specific alters that are basically assigned and conditioned and programmed to be a certain, basically what he says here is essentially he had a suicidal alter, right? If not more than one. And so his handlers were well aware of this. And if he ever went off the reservation, so to speak, they would attempt to trigger this suicidal alter in order to self-destruct the victim. My God, it's just like, imagine that. And
it's part of the way how they cover all this up.
Absolutely.
And then like, dude, it's brutal. Like they can literally program anything into them.
Right.
And it can be one mission, it can be decades of missions,
Exactly, man.
And they can never have a memory of any of it.
No, that is the most disturbing part, honestly. But and that's exactly what he claims in this as well. And the first thought that I had was the individual. I'll pull it up in a second, actually. So let's just listen to this damn guy actually make the statement.
And become an officer. Go into the military service and become an officer. And a few years after that, retire from the service. Not retire after 20 years, but after 6 years.
Specifically.
And move to Germany. And then their initial plan to take over or to run the government was to put me in an ambassador spot. And then later to come back to the United States and to run for an office. And they would be the ones who controlled everything that I did.
So you would be an operative, so to speak.
I would be a puppet.
Bang! I mean,
And you say this plan broke down in 1986, but yet you told me that you still felt that you were under the control.
I am still under their control because I do not answer phones anymore because that's how they.
Dude, that's so brutal.
Right?
Like you can't pick up phone calls anymore because they can trigger you over the phone like that.
That's the first thing I thought was Raymond
like
Shaw.
Sounds. It can be sounds. It can be words. Anything.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. That was what I thought when it was the first thought that I had was Raymond Shaw. Well, actually, I also had, just in terms of the programming, the shelf life of the programming, I thought of the individual who broke into that Colorado theme park, the amusement park, overnight, and essentially went into the bathroom. Yeah, wrote on the wall, right? Basically, I forget exactly. I'll pull it in a second. I think I have a bookmark somewhere. But he essentially, the notion is that he had to self-destruct, or he would effectively have to be, or forced to go through with this heinous crime. And that was basically the implication of what he had written on the mirror before taking his own life. And so imagining that you are waking up to your programming enough to realize that you are legitimately being triggered in moments where you're waking up with no memories of what had happened, because the alter that's triggered, essentially it's post-hypnotic suggestion, so they have no memory of what they actually do within the context of when they're obviously prioritized and triggered in that layered altered personality. And that's fascinating, as far as just like the obviously Raymond Shaw in The Manchurian Candidate, the film from 1963, right? What do we see? He gets a call from his handlers, and he's sitting at a pub, right? And he's just sitting at the bar. That the handlers call. They ask if Raymond Shaw is here. He says, "Yes, this is Raymond." And then what do his handlers do? They say, "You should pass the time by playing a little solitaire." And instantly it triggers that first layer of programming for the suggestibility to be essentially leveraged and exploited. And then as he plays the solitaire, he triggers the secondary layer of programming as soon as he sees the red queen of diamonds, right? Isn't it diamonds? Yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, I just thought how fascinating, obviously. And then I think in terms of Bonassi, what he has to say here, it's just fascinating to imagine as far as like triggering right. That obviously I thought of that amusement park case, because triggering a
100%.
Manchurian and essentially him having to commit suicide in order to not follow through with his programming. That's really what it felt like to me. But this is another layer on top of that, right? Where they already programmed this victim with an alter and right,
Right.
with an alternate personality that we can effectively trigger, which will allow them to self-destruct, as you had mentioned. But the fact that they're attempting to essentially provide him with a path to become this vital, prominent politician, or at least asset within DC and the permanent establishment, to become a puppet, as he said, is just, again, something that I think far too many people are unaware of, right?
To the triggers as well. That's how they get the others to the triggers, is what I'll call them. They're not personalities. They contain no memories at all.
No memories at all.
Hypnotic suggestions, and only come out when, as I said, a code is presented to them. And that happened several times in 1989, which is why Paul and Mikey's memories are so confused. At that time, they were attempting to destroy me because they were attempting to access suicidal personalities and other personalities that would get me in trouble with law enforcement. When they program personalities,
so they wanted to also discredit him by triggering an alternate personality that would obviously get him in trouble with the authorities and undermine his credibility. I mean, that's legitimately the only reason you would have that as a failsafe in my mind, right?
100%, because it's a way to cover up all of this.
Exactly. And if you don't know,
which is their goal. I mean, because otherwise, how are they going to be able to keep all of this going?
Right.
Because
and
this is their secret weapon.
Exactly. Split personality spies that could even deliver, clandestine intelligence without even knowing it.
Right.
I mean, that's just amazing to me, right?
Right.
But we're almost through this.
The triggers, as I call them, they would call me up and they would use a code. I would simply switch into that trigger, go to where they told me to go, whether it would be or get on an airplane because they would already have the tickets there.
Bang.
They would have the tickets there under a name that only that trigger would know.
Yep.
And go to wherever it was. There would be somebody waiting for them in that city and take them to wherever it was that they were supposed to go, bring them back to the airport, put them on the plane. They would come back home. And as soon as they walked in the door, the memory of everything that had just happened would be erased completely.
Man, dude, I mean, my God, right? That I just felt like, at the very least, far too many people probably haven't seen that clip, right? And the value of just understanding how they would legitimately, operationally speaking, right, kind of implement these methods. I think the more we know, right, I think
Right.
the more we can at least manufacture some kind of defense mechanism to where, at the very least, and my God, buddy, I mean, I've legitimately been in the shower before, and I'm just thinking like, all they have to do is set up shop right outside, and I mean, probably
Mhm.
far less than that. All they would have to do is probably trigger my cellular device and to emit a
Oh, yeah.
certain EMF, and then all of a sudden, I'm like, you know what I mean?
Right.
You lose track of, I don't know, the past couple hours or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? It's
Right. All
possible.
of a sudden you wake up and your shoes are muddy and you're like, "What the
Where the
fuck?"
fuck was I? You start, yeah, you're
Right.
like Tamerlan Tsarnaev, who's like, I can't account for all this loss in time. I'm waking up in places I don't understand how I got there, and it sounds exactly like an individual suffering from DID.
Well,
And
and there's also other mental disorders that these are the symptoms of, and so it's really easy for medical professionals to turn around and ignore something like DID and be able to say, "Oh, well, you're suffering from this," and then medicate you,
Right.
and then boom, there's the end, and people are none the wiser.
Right. Yeah.
So,
No,
dude,
I
it's
think
it's
you're
the most
100%
it's the most devious thing, like, I've ever heard about, and this is
right.
why, I've decided to focus on this because I think it all does come back to this,
Mhm.
it's the mind control, it's MK Ultra, it's what they learned about what they were trying to do to people through the chemicals, through the hypnosis, through the radiation experiments, like,
Right.
and it's still going on,
Oh,
like, it
yeah.
it never ended.
No,
It's just now operational.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, and I think far more effective than anyone would like to
oh yeah,
imagine,
dude,
right?
it's hands
Yeah.
off now. They
Yeah.
don't like, they still will, in my opinion, I think they still will, like, kidnap you and put you through a Clockwork Orange style stuff
Right.
if they want to, but they
Mhm.
don't have to, is the point, you know?
Oh, yeah. I remember I was, who the hell was it who basically, I think it was when I just covered the MK Ultra, episode, I think. It was probably my very first episode when I came across the notion that all they had to do, operationally speaking, is they legitimately had like almost like a nicotine, what's it called? That you just like, a patch, right? A nicotine patch or
Right,
something, but it's actually like a specific pharmaceutical recipe that instantly creates or basically creates this very extremely suggestible, vulnerable psychological state of mind just from the chemical release. You will lose all
right,
memory and things of that nature, and also basically like the devil's breath or scopolamine, you will become instantly suggestible to whatever the individual who
right,
doses you, basically kind of pushes you in whatever direction, you will follow that directly. And I think
right,
it was basically they had a patch that they were operationally using in terms of if they had a target they would want to compromise or at least just get into uh, 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 apprehend or detain, right, for a moment, for some sort of reason to potentially actually program them or just even interrogate them and essentially use these very methods to have them expose whatever they did know, right. And so I found it interesting. Almost, oh shit, did I just hey, can you hear me now?
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay,
No,
my shit froze
your
up.
sound's good, but your camera froze for just a sec, but yeah, your sound is good, at least
Okay,
on my end.
I'm gonna have to get something figured out with that, but either way, what was I saying? Sorry, buddy. I can't remember now.
Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was
the
just
patch.
suggesting that, yeah, that obviously if you're considering level of effectiveness and also kind of just the more covert method of applying this to someone just in broad daylight, honestly, you could just essentially, because I had read about how the CIA had utilized this technique on a specific individual to basically interrogate them with no free will attached to the person,
Right,
and so they found him as soon as he basically left his residence. They were outside waiting for him, and the first thing they did is approach him and act like they were going to shake his hand. And so he puts his hand out, just out of, obviously, just attempting to be cordial. And the first thing that happens is the operative, basically, when he's going to shake his hand, he slaps on this patch on his arm right above his
Right.
hand, right? And then within seconds, it's seeping into their body, and they instantly lose all memory and track of time and everything else, right? And become fully
Right.
vulnerable and suggestible. So I was just mentioning that as a vital technique that I've legitimately read about them utilizing in the field, which is just fascinating
Right.
to me, obviously. But now
Also
we'll
another
finally
reason
pivot
to never touch a
completely-
stranger's hands.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, if you don't, yeah,
Like
right.
I don't shake hands with strangers anymore. I really don't.
That's
Like
hilarious.
if people really want to, like I'll do the elbow thing. I'll be like, yeah, fuck yeah, like elbow. But if I
That's
know you, I'll
hilarious.
shake your hand. But
Mhm. Well, I say now is probably the best time that we can pivot into one of the three cases that we're hoping to discuss, which I think really I was hoping to. Well, first of all, let's just look at a little bit of a portion of Geraldo Rivera's Devil Worship Exposing Satan's Underground.
Oh yeah, this is my
which is the
favorite.
funniest
This is
thing
my absolute favorite. Like
ever.
I've watched this so many times, and it's still my favorite.
Hilarious. And just the voice he uses, I'm like, my God, Geraldo, like chill out, dude. But you couldn't be more of a compromised individual asset than Geraldo Rivera.
No kidding.
I mean, wasn't he in league with the Zapruder film, right? Which is just hilarious that he was involved with that. He's involved with being in with being on board the military, or not military, the media helicopter flying over Ruby Ridge, right? Randy Weaver's property,
Right.
and helped make the false statement and pretext and justification for they shot at the media helicopter, so therefore they
Right.
deserve to all die, I guess, right?
Right.
And who provided that pretext? Geraldo Rivera, right?
Right.
Which is just there's too much of that happening,
Well,
obviously.
and let's
that
not
we
forget
can-
he also exposed, like, one of the big first things he ever did was expose that mental hospital up in upstate New York, or I think it was in New York. But exposed the conditions in that mental hospital, and then got a lot of mental hospitals shut down because of that.
Of course.
You know?
Perfect
So-
timing too, right?
Right.
Just when you need to oversaturate the landscape that you're hoping to,
Right.
obviously. Yeah, exactly. That's just yeah, obviously they were attempting to, I think, at every level, seed the environment, right, and with
100%.
opportunity. But actually, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. You want to just hold it down for a brief second? I'll be
Yeah.
right back.
Yeah, of
You cool with
course.
that? Do you wanna introduce one of the cases for us? Maybe
Yeah,
we
of
could
course.
start with.
I've actually got a perfect thing to kind of bring up, actually.
Okay. Hell yeah.
This started beforehand. It's Damien Eccles. So
Oh, nice.
let's bring this up real quick. So earlier, I had
We'll be right back.
noticed a friend of our shows, Dana, had actually made a post about Damien Eccles earlier, or had retweeted him. Let's see, and I ended up retweeting the same thing. Let's see here. I think there we go. So Damien actually posted this thing. So Damien Eccles is on X, in case anyone is curious. But so I'm not going to read this whole thing, but he's talking about sword training is about learning how to inhibit your whole nervous system when you train with the sword correctly, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then there's this like super nerdy fucking video, right? Now I'm blocked. I'm actually blocked now. So, but I just straight up said, holy shit, the dude is actually a mall ninja along with an occultist and convicted child killer. But this is him. This is Damien over here just playing with swords. like a fucking mall ninja.
This
But
fucking guy,
he's,
man.
dude, he's also like selling a book and a seminar with it.
Hey, did you not? Oh,
Like,
that makes a lot of sense.
doesn't it though?
Sporting.
He's a
It
fucking mall
actually
ninja
does. And
though.
by the way, I had to ask you, is it true that this piece of shit gets out of jail and goes directly to Salem, Massachusetts?
Yeah.
And,
And well, actually,
it's a-
what he moved to Salem, but he actually, one of the very first places he went was to New Orleans, right?
oh my God.
And he went and hung out with a member of the process.
Hilarious.
The very first thing. So gets released from prison, right? And that's what he does. And now this is what he's doing, training with the sword. And apparently now I'm blocked as well. So, you know, because I
Oh, no
called
shit.
Yeah, because I
That's
called
so
him a
funny.
convicted child murderer because
Good
well,
for you,
he
buddy.
is. Because he
Mhm.
is.
Exactly.
So,
No, you know what blew my mind? Well, do you want to just set up the bare bones or whatever of the case itself of the West Memphis 3
yeah,
briefly?
sure.
Awesome.
So the whole basis of the West Memphis 3 is that in uh, May 5th of 1993, three young boys, three 8-year-old boys, all three of them were 8, went missing later in the evening. They never ended up coming home. And on May 6th, 1993, those 3 boys' bodies were found in a location in West Memphis known as Robin Hood Hills. And all 3 bodies were submerged under the water. 2 of the 3 were mutilated, like pretty severely. Their genitals were mutilated.
Mm-hmm.
No, not near any train tracks, but they were near. They were all near interstates. Because West Memphis, like the location of where it is actually 3 different interstates that merge together. So they're sitting literally in a triangle, which the symbolism, holy hell, is right out of the gate. The whole town is set up in a triangle, like
Mhm.
you know.
I've been to Memphis when, so I was from, so basically I'm from Northwest Arkansas, obviously, and so
Right.
this is a stone's throw from where I basically grew up the majority of my life. So this
Right.
case, and then the other case you were going to discuss with right, just as far as the Ozarks case, where you have
Yep.
this satanic murder happening to what was his name again? I keep forgetting his name. James
Stephen-
Hardy is one of the perpetrators. I know that, but
Yep. Stephen Newberry was the victim.
even Newberry. Thank you.
Yep.
For the life of me, I can't remember that name right now. But anyway, I did think the geographical proximity to just again where I spent the majority of my life is kind of disturbing, just in terms of Joplin, Missouri. I think one of the key perpetrators legitimately runs a tattoo parlor there now, and it's just
Right.
fascinating that they're free in the first place, obviously,
Right.
regarding the details. But in terms of the West Memphis 3, I think Memphis in general, West Memphis, it's just such a strange place, in my opinion. And
It
you know,
is.
every time I've gone there, and I mean, it was only a couple times, I think, but I went to go to an NBA game and went down, what's it called? Bourbon Street? No, what's the name of the, trying to remember the name of the major street in downtown Memphis. But anyway, doesn't matter. It's an interesting place, and it feels like there's definitely a lot of clandestine activity afoot.
Right.
You know, I will say that much. And I do believe that, just as in the context of Indiana with Delphi, right? I think there's something to that. And seeing these neo-paganist organizations that seem to, at the very least, take seriously these ancient pagan runes and things of that nature. It's just fascinating to witness how many times we see the layered symbolism involved in these heinous crimes. All right, beyond the level of satanic ritual, obviously, just in terms of the satanic worshiping that's involved in some of the obvious details of the crimes. But I was curious to get your perspective on one of the original witness statements, which there's a couple of them. There's one confession they try and act like is a false confession, but in reality, it feels like it's just basically they're attempting to facilitate a cover up in a way. I'm not entirely certain, but there was also a statement by a witness that was made, and they act as if the only reason in which they were making this statement was in order to receive an offer or a reward for assisting the police in arresting the killers, right? And that this was too much of an incentive for some people to resist. I don't know. In some of the statements, it felt like that didn't necessarily apply, and that they were actually being honest in what they had claimed about what took place that night, right? So I don't know. It's just interesting to me because obviously, if you're considering the notion that the West Memphis Three to this day are considered to be the true victims of the Satanic Panic, as we said before, then yeah, it's just there's too much detail here, and it seems to fall perfectly in place with the crime scene. So how can we just basically reject and set aside the level of detailed witness accounts that seem to lend credibility to the pagan ritual aspect of the murders? Right.
Well, and so here's how I kind of break it down. There's only two people when it comes to this case, and it's the people who know that they are guilty and the people who claim that they are innocent. And if you were one of the people who claim that they are innocent, you know jack shit about the case. Period. You know nothing about the case, or you're just a liar, period. Like that's like you know about the case and you're intentionally lying, or you know nothing of the case. Because if you know anything of the case, any rational person is going to say, holy shit, they're guilty.
That's all that I saw. Yeah, exactly, man.
Right. I mean, everything points to them being guilty. Now, here's the reality of the West Memphis Three. They are twice convicted. Okay? They're twice convicted child murderers. They were convicted once, rightfully so. And in 2011, they were technically convicted a second time, but were able to maintain their innocence and were released through an Alford plea. Now, the reason why the state of Arkansas did this is because of the celebrity backing. And I mean, they had massive money from like Peter Jackson. I mean, they actually, nobody really knows what their war chest is like, how much is actually in there. But I mean, we're talking anywhere between 10 and 20 million dollars, you know? And if the state of Arkansas went to trial again, they risk the possibility of losing the conviction. But this way, if they release them on an Alford plea, they retain the conviction. So they are still convicted child murderers. So that is what it is. And so people who claim innocence will lie about this and say that they were exonerated. No, they were not. No, they were not. They claim that they are, but as far as the state and the law is concerned, they are twice convicted child murderers. So, I mean, first and foremost, there it is. They're twice convicted, you know?
Yeah, that's it's too much to just dismiss, right? But beyond that, if you fundamentally expose yourself to some of the more extraordinary details involved in the court documents, or just I basically I only spent like I think a little bit of time, two days in a row, I think, to kind of come up with some working knowledge of what I felt like I could understand from the case from afar for this conversation. And obviously the deep dive will happen one day because there's too much here. You know, you can't
it will make you so fucking angry too. Period.
I'm already angry just from
Right.
just from
Right.
honestly, I'm jaded at this point, but I will say that reading through the details of what allegedly happened to these I mean, it was 3 kids, right? As far as that were
Yes.
murdered, and
So for anyone who doesn't know, just real quick. So the 3 boys, and these are the names that you need to remember: Christopher Byers, Stevie Branch, and Michael Moore. These are the real West Memphis 3. These are the names that need to be remembered. Fuck those other 3.
yeah,
Seriously. They're
exactly.
trash. All 3 of them are trash. But what happened, I actually have the elevator pitch right here. So on May 5th, 1993, Christopher Byers, Stevie Branch, and Michael Moore, all 8 years old, were murdered in West Memphis, Arkansas. Their bodies were found the next day in a drainage ditch, bound with shoelaces, beaten, sexually assaulted, one castrated, and all drowned. 3 teenagers were arrested: Damian Eccles, 18, Jason Baldwin, 16, and Jesse Miskelly Jr., 17. Jesse confessed 8 times, including after his conviction with his hand on a Bible to his own attorney. He knew details only the killer would know. Michael Moore wasn't mutilated like the other 2 boys. Crime scene cleanup methods matching forensic findings, and a phone call at 9 p.m. that was verified.
Right.
Damian Eccles knew autopsy details before they were public. Boys were cut up. One cut up more than the others, may have drowned. He failed a polygraph. Multiple witnesses heard him admit to the murders. All 3 had 0 credible alibis even to this day. And in 1996, HBO released Paradise Lost, portraying them as innocent outcasts. Celebrities like Johnny Depp and Peter Jackson poured millions into their defense. And in 2011, they took an Alford plea, legally pleading guilty while maintaining innocence, and were released. They remain convicted murderers under the law, not exonerated.
Yeah. Good job, Jacob. Fuck these guys. I mean, honestly,
Seriously.
whenever, because I believe it was Damian Eccles who essentially offered up knowledge of the crime scene that only the perpetrators would have had, right? And I think that which even included the basically just completely I forget the term, but essentially torturing their genital region, essentially, right? I forget the term that they use, but yeah, there was I remember that there was a specific witness by the name of Vicky Hutchinson. And they always point to this woman, it seems like, and basically claim that she recanted her statement, and they tried to say the same thing. It's so ridiculous, though, how they framed this, right? And
well,
it's
dude, it gets so much even worse than that, too, because so Damien on May 9th, okay, so the boys go missing on May 5th, 93. They're found May 6th. On May 9th, Damien is questioned for the very first time. On May 9th, he tells the police that the boys were urinated on.
Yep.
The police didn't even know that at that point. They didn't know it until many, many days later when the autopsies were done. How the hell would he even know that unless he was there?
That's insane, man.
He knew they were urinated on May 9th, and he gave that in a sworn statement to the police. And he also admitted that, the crime was occultish in nature, that it was most likely a thrill kill was the quote. The direct quote is that this was a thrill kill, and that the killer was probably happy and didn't care if he got caught, or all these things, because the police were asking him, like, how do you think the killer would feel, and these are the answers he gave. So it's like, dude, what the hell?
Right. Yeah, he felt a little too overconfident, I think, in a way. But
right. And it got so much worse too. I mean, some of the insane things that happened. And mind you, you've got to remember that the whole way through, when you hear all the information, is that they were innocent, right? That they were only boys that dressed in black and listened to heavy metal. That was it, right? The they weren't occultists or anything. They weren't interested in any sort of magic or anything, even though Damien admitted once again he was questioned May 9th, kind of unofficially at Jason Baldwin's house, and then he was questioned again on May 10th, officially at the police station. He admitted to being Wiccan. He admitted to being in a cult, like all of these things, but he's just a boy that listens to Metallica and wears black, right?
Right.
Like, and then let's see, I got this video from the trial.
Refer you back to your statement that you gave Officer Ridge. Did you tell him in that statement that you had been a member of a white witch group for 5 years?
No.
Okay.
I've never been a member of any group.
And so if he put that in his report, you're saying that's inaccurate?
Yes, I am.
He made that up?
Yes, I am.
On question number 9, how do you think the person feels that did this? The answer was probably makes them feel good, gives them power. Now, I guess Officer Ridge said that too.
No, I use common sense on that.
Okay.
If someone was doing it, then they must have wanted to. And if they were doing something they wanted to, it must have made them happy. I don't think they were doing it because someone forced them to, or because they didn't want to.
Right.
So in your mind, the person that killed these 3 kids, it's common sense that killing 3 8-year-olds would make you feel good?
Whoever did it, it must have.
Okay. Did you also tell him that each person had a demonic side to them?
I believe every person has a good side and a bad side, yes.
Well, were those your words when you referred, when he's got written down here, he stated that there was no control of the demonic portion of people?
He asked me, did I think there were some people that could not control that side? I said, yes, I guess there is.
It also states that Damien stated that the younger the victim would be more innocent, and in turn more power would be given the person doing the killing.
Right.
Okay. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay, those are your words.
Mm-hmm.
Did you pick that up when you were studying to be a Catholic?
No. I saw that on several movies, books.
Yeah, so here's one of the many lies that he told is that Damien, right? Because his real name is Michael Wayne Hutchinson. Okay. That's his birth name. Well, he said that in trial, he said that he took the name Damien from a priest who lived on an island with lepers.
Isn't Damien, wasn't that the name of...
it's the little boy from The Omen.
That's what I thought,
He
yeah.
was the devil.
The devil, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
And there's no coincidence that he moved to Salem, I don't think, and deliberately after, being released. And I also, there was, when they first interviewed him, I remember that I read that basically they had taken a photo of Damien, and it showed... because I think the first interview was conducted in his bedroom or something, and one of the officers basically took a picture of him, or at the very least noted that he had a tattoo on his chest of a 5-pointed star.
Yeah.
Right?
So that was actually out behind his trailer when they first took pictures of him.
Okay.
And so and so he had a pentagram tattooed on his chest. Very clearly, he did it himself.
Right.
And this, to me, right here, this clip, this is the most damning clip ever.
With a fellow named Aleister Crowley.
I know who he is.
And he's a guy who kind of professes, he's a noted author in the field of satanic worship, right?
I know he is, but I've never saw any of his books personally.
Okay. Not really much of a follower.
Never saw any of his books.
I would have read them if I would have saw them, but I just never.
Okay. But Aleister Crowley is a guy that, based on his writings, believes in human sacrifice, doesn't he?
He also believed he was God, though. So
Okay, so he knows that he believes that he's God, but he's also never read him before.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck, dude? Like, and it gets worse. So,
Oh man, I think the strange Catholic connection there, right?
Mhm.
Do you want to read that?
Yeah. So it says the irony is that Damien would attempt to mock Crowley for thinking he was God. Here is a direct quote from a letter Damien wrote to a member of his defense team. Now, the quote that, this is what he wrote directly to his defense team. It was, quote, everyone will pay because everyone is too stupid to open their eyes. Let's see, that's covered up. To open their eyes. This is the final time, and I am the new Messiah. My body is changing, but that medicine is making it happen a lot more slowly than normal. I am outgrowing my skin. Let's see. I am eating packs of sugar and Kool-Aid to give my body extra energy it needs to make its change. Soon people will be able to know I am the Christ. I always knew I was different from other children. So he gave this to his defense team. Like,
that's amazing.
What the fuck? Yeah, now this is the best clip you will ever see of Damien Eccles, and it kind of demonstrates like how much of a liar he genuinely is.
Aleister Crowley doesn't have any particular significance to you?
I know who he is. I've read a little bit about him, but I've never read anything by him.
Right there, he just said, like, I've never read him. I read a little. Like, what is it? You know, it's just like he can't go one full sentence without contradicting himself.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show you a copy of some documents. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Boom, he's shitting his pants right there.
It was this paper I had on different alphabets.
See how his voice changed?
Like translations.
Dude, he is shitting his pants right there.
And this was one of the forms.
Oh, okay. Well, where did you have that at? When did you do that? Write those things out?
Sometime before I was arrested, I guess.
Okay. Are you sure that you haven't done those since you were arrested?
So what he's holding is a paper that Damien wrote in prison, and he was writing his name, his son's name, Jason Baldwin's name, and Aleister Crowley's name in the witch's alphabet.
Interesting.
So they found this while he was in jail, right? They found it in his cell. No, he is not a minor. He was 18 when this happened and when he was arrested.
Mm-hmm.
You've been staying in jail?
I don't know, I might have.
Well, whose names are written on that document?
Mine, Jason's, my son's, one that says Aleister Crowley. And
Wait, who?
Aleister Crowley.
Now, this is a document that you've written while you've been waiting in jail for trial, right?
If you say so.
Well, you wrote it, correct? That's your writing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You recall when you wrote it?
Not really.
Well, what I'm going to ask you is that this Damien Seth Azariah Eccles, your son, he wasn't born until after you were placed in jail, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you've got his name listed on this document, then this document had to be generated after he was born, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is something you've written since you've been sitting in here in jail waiting for trial.
Yes.
And what you were doing was writing out various names in different type alphabets, correct?
From the way it looks here, I was practicing, trying to memorize them.
Okay. And one of the names that you picked out to write about was this fellow named Aleister Crowley, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that just a total coincidence? You just pulled his name out of there?
No, it's just the same book that I had with the different alphabets in it. It also had stuff about him in it.
Well, did you have the book out there at the time you were doing this?
This was just from what I remembered myself, where I was practicing, trying to memorize.
Why?
It all in my head.
You're not an occultist, right?
Working on it in your head, and at that point in time, You write all this down from memory?
Mm-hmm.
The people that are listed on here, you've got your name on here, right?
This is
And then
insane.
Jason Baldwin, which is your best friend, right? And then you've got Damian Seth Azariah Eccles. That's your son?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then the only other name on this document, besides yourself, your best friend, and your son, is Alistair Crowley, correct?
Yes, sir.
Dude.
Like, dude, what the hell? So remember, so he is just a fan of heavy metal, listens to Metallica, dresses in black, and is a little weird in the Bible Belt, right? And
Yeah.
and he's totally just framed by the police.
Oh,
He
yeah,
knows
that's
the witch's
bad.
alphabet by memory, right?
Just sheer coincidence. You don't know the witch's alphabet.
Right.
That's just so crazy. But I
Right.
was I had seen that, obviously, the Catholicism angle, right, as it has been presented, that he was Pentecostal style church that he was affiliated
Right.
with. But then I saw that essentially he starts going on a quest. And is this his shoulder tattoo as
Yeah,
well?
this is his tattoos after he got out of prison. So
Wow.
I mean, he's not
Jeez.
an occultist.
That's so crazy to me.
He's not an occultist. He just
Mhm.
likes Metallica and just dresses in black.
Well, it's what I thought was interesting was that he starts to go on this like spiritual journey, right? He's like allegedly questioning. He's exposing himself to various different religions like Buddhism and Hinduism and even Islam, and then this is before he discovered Catholicism, allegedly.
Right.
And then for a time, he felt that he had found what he was looking for and was baptized and received communion. But no matter how devoutly he studied, the emptiness continued. It was during this time that he changed his name to Damien, after Father Damien, a 19th century Catholic priest who cared for lepers in the Hawaiian island of Molokai.
Right.
The rumor mill in West Memphis would report that he had named himself after Damien in the series of Omen movies. And now this is the most interesting part to me. Damien still found no comfort in religion or girlfriends. Catholicism was soon discarded and replaced with paganism, which he had discovered after studying Stonehenge and the Druids. That's just insane that obviously he's studying the occult, basically, right? Like that's
Right.
just, I mean, this is the official narrative behind him as well, which is fascinating, that this is how they documented kind of his path, spiritually speaking, right? But that's too much for me. And you combine that with that strange witness account that I mentioned from Vicky Hutchinson right earlier.
Mhm.
What did she say, man? She decided that apparently, and she even had like her house bugged, right? Wasn't that what happened? Is essentially she let the police basically attempt to get Damien on tape, right? Basically talking about the murders,
Right.
and so somehow, I think through her son or something, right? She arranged for Damien to come meet with them at her house, and
Well,
this
it
is when,
was actually through Jesse
yeah, that's what it was,
that
Jesse.
he arranged
Okay.
to meet him. So, and this is so she basically told
Aaron Hutchison was her son, right?
right.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so here's another thing to also keep in mind too. By the way, this is a picture of him during trial. This is
Wow.
to the parents, by the way.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just because he's on trial for a murder he didn't commit, and
Right.
right. And so another thing, like, people have got to keep in mind, everyone that knew him and the other three boys, Jesse Miss Kelly and Jason Baldwin, were scared of Damien.
Yeah.
They were genuinely scared of him.
Makes sense, man.
I mean, it's so Buddy Lucas, the very first guy that Jesse Miss Kelly confessed to, actually lied about the first confession. Okay. And the reason he said he lied about it was because he was scared of Damien. He was scared of what Damien might do to him or his family.
Mm-hmm. That was Jesse, right?
Yep, Jesse Miskelly.
Do you think he actually lied, though? Because that confession, one of the confessions that I read seemed pretty legit.
Oh, no. The confessions, I mean, yeah, there are little details, right?
Yeah.
And if you go through all the confessions and you read them or, get the accounts of them. In fact, Jose and I did an entire show where we went through all 8 confessions, and I broke down all 8 confessions, and they get more accurate as they go on.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting. But the things that stay the same are the things that stay the same all 8. So it's like
you can find a consistent pattern there.
Right.
Yeah, you can rely a little bit more on that.
And he knew certain details like how one of the boys tried to run away, which is who Jesse Miskelly tried to catch, which is why his body was further down the drainage.
Yeah, that's what I was reading earlier, basically, is that confession. And that's why I walked away from that thinking maybe the pressure was actually to claim it was a false confession. And it wasn't necessarily that he was, maybe he was taking liberties on certain details or whatever.
He was, because he was trying to distance himself.
Yeah.
Right? Because he didn't want to be a part of this, because Jesse actually left before the boys were like actually slaughtered.
Right.
So, and then on top of that, the whole defense for Jesse was that he was retarded. And it's like, no. And in fact, if you go back and go watch Paradise Lost, the first one, there was a clip where Jesse's defense attorney is telling him that if you get a low IQ score on this IQ test, you will not get the death penalty because they can't kill retards, right?
Right.
And so his defense attorney is telling him this, like, get a low score, get a low score. I'll save you from dying, And it's like, why would you do that? Like, unless you were trying to tell him to fake this IQ score thing. And granted, he's not a genius, right? I mean, that's just what it is, but he's not retarded. He's just not. And so they basically, and that's the defense. The people who claim innocence always say, well, he's retarded and the police coerced a confession out of him because he was there for 10 hours. No, he was there for 4 hours at the police station. His dad gave permission because he was 17. And the first 2 hours was a polygraph test. And the last 2 hours was him actually confessing, of which 30 minutes is actually recorded.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think that whenever I actually was I just felt like when I was reading the witness statement and then that confession as well, it seemed to fit perfectly with. I would like to know your take on the cult cop or whatever he called himself, which I did find very interesting. I felt like what he had to say fit a little too perfectly as far as the pagan symbolism aspect of things, and I think it was.
Are you talking about Jerry?
Hold on, I'm basically, I wanted to basically say that essentially, well, because the cult cop I did find legitimately, as far as I believe it was, I think there was a testimony that they relied upon as well that was from, I think it was Dale Griffiths or something.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And then there was basically this. Yeah, individual who proclaimed himself as a cult cop is what he was claiming, and giving lectures and seminars on this, basically the dangers of adolescents involved in satanic activities. And but yeah, I did find it interesting because basically what happens is the basis of the testimony was that the crime scene bore the trappings of occultism,
right?
And in this expert's opinion, right? he was claiming that the murders were satanic in nature, and he pointed to basically 11 examples as to why. And he said that they were carried out on a date close to a pagan holiday and on a full moon, and that fit with that of Vicky Hutchison, who made a statement to the police, right, and claiming that I think 2 weeks after the murders, she had gone with Jesse and Damien to an esbat, a ritual observance of the full moon within Wicca and other Wiccan influenced forms of neo-paganism. I instantly was just like, my God,
right.
Here we go again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, in Terrell, Arkansas or something, right? And
Right.
she claimed that Damien had driven his red Ford Fiesta to the empty field where the esbat, is that how you pronounce that, esbat? I don't know how to,
I think so.
yeah.
I think so.
And this is where this esbat or whatever supposedly occurred. Although Damien Eccles did not have a driver's license and did not own or have access to a Ford Fiesta, this is apparently one of the issues with the statement. And Vicky was not able to identify anyone else attending the esbat or even find its location. And then that was I think relied upon to essentially deny the credibility of her statement, which I thought was a little too convenient, you know, as in terms of how it basically reinforced the official narrative in a way. And so, yeah, I think that's when the police became like extraordinarily because basically Vicky was still essentially used during the trial as corroborative witness, right, to Damien and Jesse's satanic involvements. And so police were essentially convinced of Jesse's involvement when William Winfred Jones told them that Damien, while drunk, had bragged to him about murdering the boys.
Mm-hmm.
Before he could testify in Jesse's trial, Jones recanted his statement. Now, I feel like there had to have been a lot of pressure on some of these people, right, at this point.
Yeah.
And
they
who
were
knows-
once again terrified of Damien, and there were tons of other people. And there are other people involved, because if Damien is involved in a cult, like he mentions,
right,
then some of these cult members are going to show up at these people's houses.
Dude,
you know,
that's what it seems like. And
gang stalking kind of stuff, you know. Like,
the Wiccan moon ritual, though, that's interesting, right? And I feel like the neo-pagan aspect of the symbolic nature of the crime scene as well, because that's what this cult cop was claiming, was that basically it was on this pagan holiday and on a full moon, and that young children were often sought for sacrifice because, as you had mentioned before, they provided a better life force.
Right.
The number of victims reflected the significance of the number 3 in occultism.
Right.
That's definitely possible. The age of the victims reflected the significance of the number 8 as a witch's number.
Right.
Sacrifices were often performed near water for a baptism type ritual or just to wash the blood away.
Yep.
The manner in which the victims were tied was significant, as being tied ankle to wrist exposed the genitalia. The removal of Christopher Byers' testicles was significant, as they are removed in satanic rituals for the semen.
Right.
Now, by the way, what is it called when you have blood, semen, and it's like this chemical occult recipe for essentially cursing someone? Basically, you can I forget, there's a term for it, but you have to have a physical, like a napkin or a physical something that you can coat with these different bodily fluids that then provide the value for the ritual. And at the very least, you can kind of it's almost like what's it called, voodoo, right? In a certain sense,
voodoo and hoodoo,
and leave these shit. What's the term for what the hell they're? I can't remember what you call these occult items that you drench in this sort of way. But you basically you conduct the ritual on the item, and then you place the item somewhere in the person's home, somewhere right near to them, and therefore it will take effect, essentially, right? The occult consequential nature of the ritualistic talisman or something. I don't know, that I forget the term for it, but either way, I think it's very possible that maybe even in modern day, people who you might not necessarily you shouldn't be willing to trust those individuals who come around you and with let's just say bad intentions and are clearly acting in bad faith, and then all of a sudden they leave some strange occult omen in your home, and you wonder why you have a string of bad luck. I'm just saying it's possible,
Right.
you never know. And who knows what period blood is a part of this as well, which I think people are unaware of. But
oh yeah, all types of blood, the blood and sex magic.
Exactly.
I mean, those are massive aspects to all of this.
Right.
Regardless of whether you're a black or a white,
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Oh.
In my experience and in my personal opinion, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter. There is no such thing as like a white witch, it's all black magic in my
Right.
personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I will say that it seems like all this reminded me of was Kinkora, I'll be honest, because it reminded me of the murder of Brian McDermott. And I
Right.
mean, my God, dude, when I covered that, this is the first thing I thought of whenever the bodies were discovered in the way in which they were with this
Right.
just genitalia being strategically just butchered, in a
Right.
way. But yeah, anyway, so the before I forget, I should at least finish the last couple of as far as just the examples of the crime scene that essentially is the reason why in which the investigators believe there was an occult context here, right? And I think just like with Delphi, this 100%, there's no other reason for this to have been fundamentally how the scene was effectively discovered, right? There's just no possible way that this was a coincidence, and so yeah, the removal of his testicles was for the semen. That makes sense in the occult context of a blood ritual. Then you have the absence of blood at the scene, significant because
Well,
cult members often store blood.
There actually was a lot of blood. They tried
Was
cleaning
there?
it up. Yes.
Okay, so
there's
they
luminol tests,
they
but they did.
harnessed. Was it less than they expected? So therefore, they made that statement because it's less than there would have been naturally because they had attempted to clean up.
Probably. I mean, because I can show you the luminol pictures because you can still find them.
Mhm.
But I mean, there's quite a bit of blood. Like
Right.
it's quite a lot. But I mean, 2 of the boys were mutilated, right?
Oh yeah.
And so
Mhm.
so you have one boy who basically bled out from having his junk cut off, right?
That's what Jesse stated, right, in that confession.
Right.
That Baldwin had used the knife to cut the boys' faces and
Yep.
penis area of Christopher Byers. Eccles had used a large stick to hit one of the boys and strangle one of them. After this attack, the boys' clothes.
All three guys used sticks to beat him, and in
My
fact,
God.
they recovered the sticks.
Yeah, all the boys apparently after the attack, their clothes were removed and they were tied up. Jesse then left the scene, allegedly.
Yep.
He was sure that Christopher Byers was already dead. After, so that makes a lot of sense because it was in his confession that he claims that Jason Baldwin telephoned him very early on in the morning of May 5th. During the course of the conversation, Jason had asked Jesse to accompany himself and Damian Eccles to the Robin Hood Hills area.
Yep.
Initially, Jesse stated that he had gone to the Robin Hood area at about 9 a.m. that day to an area near a creek where he met up with Damian and Jason. They were actually in the creek when the 3 boys rode up on their bicycles. Baldwin and Eccles had called to the boys, who then came to the creek. At this time, Baldwin and Eccles began to severely beat the boys. Jesse, claiming to be merely an observer, stated that at least 2 of the boys were raped and forced to perform oral sex on Baldwin and Eccles while these events were occurring. Michael Moore had attempted to escape, but Jesse had caught him and returned him to Baldwin and Eccles. And he goes on to man, he even provides some even more disgusting and depraved details, right, in terms of how they had basically, they were engaging in orgies. This is what he told the police, that they usually met in the woods where they engaged in orgies and initiation rites, which included killing and eating dogs. He stated that at one of these meetings, he saw a photograph that Eccles had taken of the 3 boys and claimed that Eccles had been watching the boys. So they were
and
running a
this
little
was
bit of an.
before. So
That makes sense.
so Damien was actually caught like stalking Christopher Byers.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and I mean, and so in fact, let me just bring that picture back up that I just had up. Because the point of this is kind of to show like what's going on here. So the yellow squares are all, places of interest. Eccles's house, Jason Baldwin's house, and Jesse Miskelly's house. And then halfway in between Damien Eccles and Jason Baldwin's house is Robin Hood Hills.
Oh my God.
So
that's so crazy.
Dude, think back to when you were a kid too, and you were hanging out with your friends and you were like, hey, meet me halfway in between our houses.
Right,
Dude,
right.
They would have met at Robin Hood Hills, right?
Oh, no doubt.
Like,
yeah.
That's just kind of how it is. That's how things were back then.
Exactly. I think it was they got more detailed, right? In one of his second statements that he made, and he starts talking about how the sexual molestation of the boys, he stated that the boys had been held by the head and ears and forced to perform oral sex on Jason and Damien.
Which matches up with the autopsy reports, because there were bruises on 2 of the boys' heads, which were consistent with sexual abuse.
Yeah. My God, man.
Right.
Yeah, I think he even named Stephen Branch and Christopher Byers as the 2 victims who were raped. And he stated that the boys had been tied up with brown rope, and this is what they claim was a contradiction that he had made, right? Because he had later added that one of the interrogating officers testified that according to his notes, Jesse had claimed that Baldwin had called him the night before the murders had occurred and said that they planned to go and get some boys and hurt them.
Right.
But again, I feel like these individuals seem to be acting in bad faith to some extent. Some of the investigators who are making secondary statements to I think disrupt the perspective of the level of credibility, right? I think that's what it feels like, and all you have to do is insert or inject essentially any sort of misdirected just to bring the narrative into question. Then that's really all you have to do, is introduce that concept to the public, and essentially you've achieved your goal, right? Because you muddy the waters just by doing this, shifting your statement around. It just instinctually and inherently, damages the credibility. So I do think that's an issue. But
yeah, I mean, there were definitely some issues on behalf of the police, because I think like at a certain point, I mean, the police did know that these guys did it, and so you got to think three little boys were like brutally murdered, and then I mean, just imagine that picture of Damien coming in and flipping the parents off, and just act, and so they're gonna screw up a bit because like they're like emotionally involved at a certain point. And then also this is also 1993, right? And this is also West Memphis, Arkansas. So they're gonna have limited resources, right? And I believe at the time the West Memphis police station was actually understaffed. Okay. And then like the DNA evidence and stuff, which there was actually a lot more of than people want you to believe. But the reality is that it was 1993. DNA evidence is not like a big thing. And also, even today, DNA evidence only decides the outcome of like 20% of cases. Like DNA evidence is actually circumstantial evidence. It's not primary. So it's like,
yeah, no, that's I'm telling you, man, like some of these individuals that were cross-examined and shit, they made some crazy statements that they were testifying to, and I think at one point it was that same doctor that basically said when he was testifying about conditions, apparently he was really contradicting certain things, but then he did make statements about the satanic activity that seemed just too credible and legitimate to not take seriously, and he even at I think it was the blood traits that they were trying to push back on with this individual as a character, or just as a witness, or yeah, just as far as damaging his expertise or whatever. And so he had included apparently that Michael Carson was testifying that Jason Baldwin had confessed to sucking blood from Christopher Breyer's penis.
Right.
That's interesting, right? And I think that especially just understanding, right, the neo-pagan festival apparently that was on the 1st of May that I was unaware of that, and I think that makes all the difference, because if you look at I think not 4 days later, right, you have basically Satanists holding a ritual on a full or near a full moon, right, a new moon, but they claim that it's more pagan than it is satanic, right? And so but I think
like,
that's
okay, well, one and the same,
exactly. What are we talking about at this point?
Like, okay, you're just like splitting hairs.
Exactly. We're splitting hairs here, buddy. But yeah, man, there were a collection of semen from the testicles, right, which revealed, that apparently some of it wasn't stored in the testes, and again, we're talking about how they're attempting to push back on the occult connotation, but then you see the idea of the Satanists and drinking blood, and basically claiming that during the satanic ritual there was evidence of ritualistic tools that they would utilize, right? And so we're talking like with the Fort Bragg murders and Stokely and everything, you have signatures of candle wax that's foreign to the property. No other candles match the candle wax found right in the crime scene and everything, and so those things do matter. But this felt like the perfect playbook for how you cast doubt in terms of public interpretation.
Well, and check this out too, is that once they tried to start casting doubt on the whole satanic thing, you'll never guess who took the witness stand on behalf of the defense, and that's Dr. Richard Offshee.
Oh, right. False Memory Syndrome Foundation. My brother.
So now all of a sudden,
oh my God.
Richard Offshee is on the side of the defense saying, like, yeah, obviously this isn't Satanism. This is all just made up. You guys are all panicking.
Oh my God. Yep.
And
tis
so
the
it's
nature of the satanic panic, my friend.
So, and then he's a credible doctor, and so, and that's not to take away anything that maybe he did accomplish in his life, but the fact is that he was pushing a narrative that is complete bullshit.
Right.
So he literally discredits any good that he actually ever did in his career by pushing something fake. So it's like, and the reason I wanted to point this picture out real quick, because there's also this narrative that it was maybe animal predation, right, that came in and caused a bunch of wounds.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So
who said that?
The defense, and also many like crime scene analysis will come out and say, oh well, even though the boys were murdered, the wounds, on like Stevie Branch's face and stuff were actually caused by snapping turtles.
Okay? Oh my God, man, that's a special place in hell, you bastard. Like, my God.
Right. And so here's the thing. Snapping turtles are found in the area of where they would have, found the bodies. Snapping turtles are native to Arkansas.
Oh yeah, no, I saw a snapping turtle once when I was a kid, like a couple times. I mean, obviously, but
check this out. This guy is literally damming up the reservoir damming up the drainage ditch, and they drained the whole thing. and they didn't find any animals. So this whole narrative
man.
of the animal predation is retarded. It
Right.
just is. It's retarded, and it's grasping for straws.
Oh yeah, it
So-
is. No, this is too much. Now, let me let my dog out, and then I'll
Yeah, of
come
course.
back, and I want to make one reference to the semen and blood combination of this being a very much just overlapping in nature with that of Kinkora, as I mentioned in Brian McDermott, because my God,
Right.
he was clearly ritually murdered in an occult a
Oh,
blood
yeah.
ritual, and it looks like even the body parts that were removed were strategically removed symbolically for the purposes of the ritual.
Right.
And it's just fascinating. But yeah, I'll be right back. I got to let her out, and then
No, you're good.
we'll cover that for just a brief moment, and then hopefully on our way out we could pivot to that individual. Jesus, dude.
Stephen Newberry.
What is wrong with
It's
my
good.
brain today? Oh my God, it's killing me.
You're
But
good.
yeah, I feel like that case, just understanding the Ozarks connection, obviously, and
and it's 3
too
people
much.
who performed a
3
murder.
people, and we're talking animal sacrifice, bestiality. I mean, it's very strange, and it does fit the profile, unfortunately, and yeah, again, it's time to incite legitimate moral and ethical panic,
Right.
and you call that what you want, but I am I would say fully panicked within the framework of the satanic angle. So anyway, I'll be right back, buddy. Appreciate you.
Word. So one thing I want to bring up real quick while we're here. So the animal predation thing here. So trigger warning. I'm going to bring up a crime scene photo of the wounds. It's not super graphic, but just, trigger warning for those. So here are some of the wounds that were actually found on Stevie Branch. And this is what they said. These are the wounds that they said were caused by animal predation. Okay. These are the wounds that they said were caused by the animals. I'm not seeing it. Okay. Like it doesn't make sense to me. But what does make sense, let's see here. Where is this? What does make sense is, okay, don't pop up in front of my screen. Let's see. Sorry, I should have had this pulled up beforehand, but what does make sense is, okay, come on, hide. Big reveal. Damn it. So here's the knife that they found behind Jason Baldwin's house. Okay, this is the knife that they found. Right?
Interesting.
Like special forces survival knife, right? Like, I mean, it was pretty standard for people to have this type of knife in the 80s and early 90s. I mean, dude, Rambo was huge.
Oh hell yeah!
Like boys loved this sort of thing, right? Like it's just the way that it is. But this is the knife they found. This is them finding it, right?
Oh my God. SEAL Team 6 was involved, I guess. Huh?
No kidding. But yeah, this is them finding it because there was a lake in the back of Jason Baldwin's house, right? There's, here's all the crime scene photos. I do find it kind of weird that they're using just a normal ruler instead of like a, like an official ruler for it.
Right.
There's how big the opening is, right? And then let's see, where is it? Come on. And then here is the wound that they said that the animals caused.
Interesting. Oh hell no.
Right.
That's crazy, man.
Right. There's no fucking way. There's no fucking way.
Ain't no snapping turtle doing that. I'll tell you that right now, dude. That's ridiculous.
And then even if it, like, they drained it, they would have found a turtle. And here's the thing is like the boys were submerged, right? But turtles actually like something alive. They like to
Right.
go after live things. And so when you fish for turtles, or when you, I guess, turtle for turtle, then you use live bait,
Mhm.
like none of this makes sense. So once again, I guess I'll end, my soapbox about the West Memphis Three, as I always do, or as I always start it, is that there are two types of people when it comes to this case: the people that know the case and know that they're guilty, or the people that know nothing about the case and claim innocence, or the people that know something about the case and are lying about it.
Right.
So that's
It's
it.
gotta be, man. There's, I'm fully convinced there was a neo-pagan symbolic ritual involved with this, and I think the timing of
There
it
has to
all,
be. There
yeah,
has to be.
I
And
can't.
the next case, I think, kind of seals the deal on that.
Absolutely, I think, yeah, 100%. And obviously, the only parallel I wanted to draw was basically for that of one Brian McDermott, and clearly, I mean, you have victims of some of the victims in the Concora scandal were basically driven to suicide. They experienced such traumatic abuse, and you had individuals who consequentially endured a life of prostitution just after, because they, I mean, were legitimately broken down to that level, right? So where they were willing and seemed like maybe the only path forward for some of the victims as well, a lifelong involved in prostitution. So it's just, what they claim is that who was involved with, Concora was basically these individuals who essentially had protection from the NIO and MI5, right? And these MI5 officials were basically abusing children as a sick perk of their job, right? Like that's 100% what was happening, and this was a child brothel basically set up to, for sexual blackmail purposes. But then you have Alan Campbell, who I believe to be the sick perpetrator, who was the chief suspect in the abduction, murder, and dismemberment of Brian McDermott, who was 10 years old at the time. And the individual perpetrator named Alan Campbell, well, he just so happens to have had protection from not only the MI5, but also the Royal, the RUC, right, which is called the Royal Ulster Constabulary, right, and it's constabulary. It's basically essentially the feds in a way in Northern Ireland at that time. So you had all these RUC officers and members of MI5 who were essentially protecting the sadistic murderer who committed a ritualistic killing of a 10-year-old boy, and then they later even try to blame it on one of his family members, and they bring him in as a patsy, and it turns out there was basically Alan Campbell was essentially a member of a gang which abused the boys at Kincora, and basically he also, and all of this was suppressed by the BBC, which is very important, and yeah, it's typical.
I mean, this is the very same thing as like the Elm Guest House,
Mhm.
the Westminster pedophile dossier.
Yep.
Same thing.
100%. Yep. And it turns
I
out
think
that
most likely like parts of the same network.
exactly, and that's why he has direct friendships and prominent personalities who, like as far as Alan Campbell did, that were essentially sadistic and murderous leaders of something called the Red Hand Commando organization, right? And this is just Gladio, man. It's what it is, and both of those men were key figures in the Shankill Defense Association, the SDA, which again I just get Belgian Gladio, is all that resonates in my mind, right? And so yeah, you had essentially these individuals protecting Alan Campbell, who was undoubtedly an MI5 agent, in my opinion, and was being utilized as a vital asset. And they called him, they called him the demon preacher, right? And I think that's important, because what effectively happens to Brian McDermott in 1973, he's kidnapped and murdered, and part of his headless corpse was discovered partly charred in a bag in the River Lagan, and 4 other boys disappeared, never to be found. Right, and it's I think they were all effectively kidnapped around the same time. It was just like what happened with Jacob Wetterling and Johnny Gosh, same thing. And
Dude, it
and
kind of makes me think of like the 1977 Girl Scout murders.
I don't know if I know about that.
Yeah, so I mean, just real quick, like 4 girls were just murdered at a Girl Scout camp in 1977. I believe it's Arkansas.
Oh
or
my God.
Ohio or somewhere right there, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you know,
it's-
we're gonna have to do a part 2, right? Because I guess
yeah.
that. Okay, cool.
This is
Awesome.
too large of a subject, unfortunately.
Exactly. I knew that would be the case, but it's better that way, I think, honestly. 'Cause
Right.
that way, you know, and we can we don't
Oklahoma.
necessarily.
That's right. The Girl Scouts in
Okay.
Oklahoma.
Well, there you
I mean,
go.
it's still right there though. You
It's
know?
right there, man. I mean, my stepdad's from Oklahoma, you know. OKC is like 3 hours from, you know, at most, really,
Right.
from where I grew up. You
Well,
know,
and see,
so
here's the thing is obviously this stuff happens in every state, right?
Mhm.
And I personally believe that it just really it follows the interstates.
Oh
Because
man,
that's
that's
how
what
you
Detective
traffic
James
children.
Rothstein said, man.
Right.
That's what Detective James Rothstein said, who was in charge of the basically that what was it? The New York State Committee on Crime. I can't remember now what they called the group, but he was basically in charge of investigating the child abuse networks that were developed at this time and being facilitated in that area. And he really it was interesting because he was a former military intelligence, and it always blew my mind that he was on the naval intelligence vessel that was first sent down to Cuba in the Bay of Pigs operation during Operation 40. He was on that boat with none
Damn.
other than Frank Sturgis. So he knew him personally from that boat.
Wow.
And the fact that when he mentioned the name of the boat to Frank Sturgis,
Right.
Detective Rothstein was the guy who arrested Frank Sturgis when he went to when he went to Marita Lorenz, right? When he went to her apartment and then basically arrested Frank Sturgis because he was going there to commit a targeted assassination on Marita Lorenz. And so it turns out that the only way that he could gain his trust in the context of the interrogation with Frank Sturgis was to drop the name of the naval intelligence vessel that he was also on during Operation 40. And then he goes, "Oh shit, you were on that boat."
Get the
That's
fuck
the only
outta
way
here.
you would know.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he became willing to talk to him for a little bit, and even mentioned that the Watergate burglary was actually about a list of pedophiles that they were
Right.
attempting to. Anyway, that was just one layered reason, but yeah, it's fascinating to me that James Rothstein traced the process after they uprooted. He claims they uprooted in upstate New York just after Son of Sam, and that essentially through his criminal informants and various individuals who are the reason why they tipped him off to the location of the Devil's Cave in Untermeyer Park, which, by the way, you look at, there are sphinxes, there are Freemasonic pillars. I mean, you look at the Untermeyer Park. And I forget Frank something Samuel J. Untermeyer, something like that. I forget the name of the guy who owned it.
A super rich guy.
Super wealthy. I believe that he had direct connections to this clandestine world.
I believe he was connected to some sort of fraternal order or his family was or something. Like I remember
said he went to his house.
Right.
And that they were using the park basically. They would hire MCs, like motorcycle clubs, to run security for the rituals. And so basically this was also how they would abduct other children, or just children without any guardian or parental guardian in place, or just out there alone, with a buddy, and all of a sudden you're abducted and sacrificed in an occult ritual. And they had obviously this is where Rothstein discovered the mass grave of German shepherds and everything else, and then they inevitably filled in the Devil's Cave, right? They filled it in, and I think that was to basically, hide all of the evidence in terms of, I mean, come on, the upside down cross, an inverted cross, everything else that was in there. It was clearly a ritual site. And but the point being is that Rothstein traces them going west and also south, right? So there, we have layers of local chapters of process members just cropping up overnight in all these various geographical locations. I'm sure it wasn't overnight, but you know what I mean. And
overnight though.
Yeah, exactly. Because
it almost is. It almost is.
That's what it seemed like, especially after New York, after Son of Sam, just as Wayne Williams is basically being railroaded as the lone perpetrator in the Atlanta child murders. You have a local offshoot of the process cropping up in the same playbook. You can see revealed yet again, right? And it's just fascinating. But I'll finally finish this point real quick. And that was basically really just the strange and unique kind of trauma that this body had gone through as far as Brian McDermott. And it's really, according to, and people have said this as far as like question the credibility of John Wedger before in the past. And man, I don't know. You're going to have to provide me with some more evidence that he's not a credible source is all I have to say, because I really, every time I've been exposed to him, it feels like he's legitimately, principled and remains, as far as his integrity is intact, in terms of trying to bring some legitimate accountability and expose the pedophiles and in these elite prominent positions of power. Like, God, man, so he's an ex-Scotland Yard detective. And by the way, they tried to destroy his career, and that goes to show. I mean, all you have to do is point to all the usual suspects where that has taken place, like U.S. Customs Agent Ramon J. Martinez from the Finders, who I still believe to be a hero, just for remaining consistent and never backing down, but also obviously not really, remaining public in this moment, which how can you blame him? But yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating. So I do effectively trust John Wedger in as much as I trust anyone, basically, right?
Right.
And he claims
there's a certain amount of people that you can trust based upon exactly what happened around them.
Right.
And that's also the opposite side of that, right? Like, going back to Camp, like the reason why you can't trust him maybe as much as some other people do is just because of his connections, so it's two sides of the same coin. And I mean, there's a tiny sliver of me that does trust Ted Gunderson in some of the things that he says.
Oh yeah, certain.
I know true,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
But
I know,
it only
dude.
goes so far. So it's just like, there's
still,
people at certain levels, like I don't know, I tend to trust like Yiki like a lot. Because the fact that he was taken out. I tend to trust Gary Webb because he was taken out,
Exactly. Danny Castellero. All the guys who essentially fall into the category of worst case of suicide you've ever seen, 2 shots to the back of the head or whatever, it's like, my God, how many times? Those are the guys that I legitimately, no more heroes, but somehow you got to have someone that you can fundamentally hope for the best in terms of keeping them on some sort of pedestal as a source in a way without, disregarding.
Well, we have to. We have to, otherwise there's no point in doing any of this.
Right.
And because the reality is there is an objective truth out there. And the objective truth is that, children are being harmed. They have been harmed. They will continue to be harmed. And also it's not just the children either. It's also adults. Adults are being harmed. And that's not any better. I mean, granted, I think children are worse because, the level of innocence, but it doesn't mean that harming adults are good, So it's like all of this evil is going to continue unless it gets spoken about, unless unless we shine a light into the darkness. And you know what?
Right.
I'm fucking here for it.
And thank you for that, my friend. This is why you're my brother, and I got nothing but love for you, because I'm telling you, anyone who's willing to just objectively ask these questions, and I think, as I said before, we have no right to essentially remain ignorant and turn a blind eye to the plight of these child victims. And if you ever want to, I mean, I would love to be a father one day, and it absolutely it's terrifying as a prospect in terms of just the formidable threat that does face the most vulnerable among us. And if you're unwilling to go there because it affects you emotionally, I feel like you just need to grow up, because unfortunately you have to address the darkness in this world, or you will be, I think, only a part of the problem at the end of the day. You will inevitably fall into these pre-laden traps and dystopian outcomes, and none the wiser. You'll essentially be protecting and defending pedophile class. And if that's what you want to do with your life on this earth, you think that's the role you should essentially play, my God, then you've been taken for a ride, like I said last night. And man, as far as somebody had mentioned that it was this guy right here, Huggy Bear. What's up, dog? He says, I'm behind the stream, but it reminds me of the Podesta email leak talking about a handkerchief with a map on it. Oh, don't go there, brother, because that's literally it's too much, man. I think it was in one of the emails, right? There's the handkerchief code, and I was unaware of that till I did the Pizzagate episode. And yeah, what was it? The John Podesta subject line: did you leave a handkerchief? Handkerchief code is a known system of color-coded cloth handkerchiefs or bandanas for non-verbally communicating one's interest in sexual activities and fetishes. A black handkerchief, for example, indicates that you are into S&M, while a dark blue handkerchief represents anal sex. The email reads, "Hi, John. The realtor found a handkerchief. I think it has a map that seems pizza-related. Is it yours?"
Oh my God.
They can send it. They can send it if you want. I know you're busy, so feel free not to respond if it's not yours or you don't want it. Susaner. So then, instantly, what did I do? I discovered John Podesta receiving these emails from Tamara Luzado, who has often been referred to as Grand Tam or Farmer L. Farmer L. This is something that I realized they have. Basically, they have pedophile farms. That was something that I didn't understand until I discovered that strange connection to the Finders, which absolutely blew my mind. And basically, that all came through the red shoes. Absolutely, no, that's legitimate. But they called it the farm, right? This the same as the pedophile academy, right? That I had talked about once with Sidney Gottlieb, known as the goat fucker. Did he provide Marion Petty with the goats used in the blood ritual?
Had to have.
He had to have. There was just no way.
They were literally a stone's throw away from each other.
Exactly.
And then Sidney Gottlieb is like, he retires and raises goats.
It's so messed up. I'm telling you.
Literally like close enough he could probably throw a rock and hit the property.
Yeah, and it was Camp Peary, right? Which is a U.S. military reservation in York County near Williamsburg, Virginia, which hosts a covert CIA training facility known as the Farm. This is the same place that Sidney Gottlieb, he calls his place the Farm, which is effectively known as a pedophile academy, and so they say that these entrapment tactics were used by a small ultra-right clique in Belgium since at least the 1970s, and may have been a direct copy of the tactics developed by the CIA under Alan Dulles, Sidney Gottlieb, and Richard Helms in the 1950s. So it was, this is a quote from CIA Assistant Deputy Director of Operations, Robert Crowley. You ready for this? "Oh, we do have our stable of weird people working for us. Did I ever tell you about the pedophile academy? We actually had one down at Camp Peary, right near the CIA's, Jim Critchfield's place. I don't know if you're aware of it, but we call it the farm. And it was supposed to be a secret training center for young agents. Anyway, Alan Dulles set up this training center down there for pedophiles. They were in training to seduce, molest, and most especially, photograph the young children of targets. Not only, Alan reasoned, would our graduates have a spanking good time, but they could get wonderful action pictures of the wee ones to blackmail their families with. I understand they broke it up when one of the graduates nailed a CIA deputy director's son at a summer camp. Oh, and we mustn't forget the goat boy. That's the strange Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. We called him that because he lived in a hovel and kept a bunch of goats around. He used to have sexual affairs with them. So I'm just like, what are we dealing with, right? These
Right.
people aren't human. I just like, I understand that humans can possess dark, sinister depravity, but this is another level, man. And it's something that I can't personally comprehend, let alone
I know.
conceptualize.
Yeah, it's same, because I mean, like, yeah, I don't even know what to make of this, because this is just true evil. Like,
Mhm.
I can't think of any other way to like put this.
No, man.
It's just like a level of depravity and degeneracy that, I mean, it makes, the story of like Sodom and Gomorrah seem like a fucking Sunday
Yeah.
school teaching, I mean, it
Oh,
literally
man.
is. Sodom and Gomorrah is literally taught in Sunday school, but this would make, like King Solomon blush, it's like,
Dude, we reside in ancient, I mean, we reside in modern Babylon. That's what it feels
oh,
like,
100%.
right? Yeah. This is the inverted moral landscape. And they are effectively seducing individuals of the general public to essentially defend and facilitate their degenerate actions, and that alone. I mean, my God, man, and people have the willingness to just disregard and discredit Pizzagate at face value. That's the reason they created the term. It's what we're talking about in this very moment. That is just Satanic Panic 2.0, my friend. I mean, what else can we say it is? I can't really, define
this is
it
why
as anything else.
QAnon pisses me off, right?
Oh, man, seriously.
Because it's just a way to dismiss it. Once again, that's Satanic Panic 2.0 is a way to
Right.
cover all this up and just be like, oh, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Satanic pedophiles. It's like,
Exactly.
oh, so you're telling me Satanists are the only ones that won't hurt children. So
Yeah.
every religion on earth will hurt children, but Satanists are the ones that won't.
Mhm.
Get the
That's
fuck
just
out of here.
exactly. You're out of your damn mind. And but yeah, I think really we might as well just do a part 2 so we can give the due diligence
love it.
necessary for
I would
those
love
other cases. Yeah, that's awesome. I think we'll just go ahead and schedule that out and make it happen sometime soon. But I did want to say one last thing as far as Pizzagate, because he just brought that up, and I forget who it was now, but they jogged my memory, and God forbid you jog my memory in regard to that. And just as far as this case specifically, the Farmer L, right? Tamara Lozado, like that was honestly one of the most interesting and extraordinary takeaways from the episode that I covered, beyond obviously Edgar Madison Welch and Forever Young Productions and all of this. I still think that Grand Tam, or Farmer L, right, who's basically during the time of the email, that when it was sent right to Podesta, she held a position of senior vice president of government relations for the Pew Charitable Trusts out of Washington, D.C. That was this woman. So multiple reports detailed the disturbing fact that child prostitution and child trafficking is referred to as, quote, the farm circuit. What did we just say?
Right.
The farm. with just multiple examples of that. And in the documentary titled An Open Secret, which it's been a long ass time since I actually watched, but they describe a sort of cultural relevance to swimming pools and pedophilia.
Right.
This is something else I wasn't aware of until this episode. And so Tamara Lozado, or Farmer L, kept a blog that she called Evie's Crib Blog. And it happened to go private, by the way. It went private just after, when a lot of this was going public, obviously. Viewable via invitation only on December 12th, 2016. Interesting date. Now, around the same time as the leaked emails were made public, obviously is the point. So
Right.
before the blog went private, we got a glimpse. We caught a glimpse into the
Oh.
world, right? And what happened?
Comment mama over here. Wonder what pig night at the Playboy Mansion.
Oh my God.
Get the fuck out of here.
I think thank God for this, thank God for this medium,
Right.
that we can have these open-minded, objective conversations, because
I
the
agree.
amount that I have learned is just, I'm so grateful. You know what I mean? Like, I just
Yeah,
couldn't even.
special shout out to everyone watching, everyone that's popped in and popped
Absolutely.
out, because seriously, I mean, I would still have these conversations and I would gladly have them with you anytime and anyone else. But man, without the audience on this, like,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm partially doing it for them too, but
Man, I feel like I'm on a path that I have no. Basically, it's outside of my control at this point, and I've formed this strange, just the way that I approach the subjects I like to cover.
Right.
I really try and go with my gut and find out, where these, essentially that's been my process throughout this entire experience. And I think this is the reason why, just as far as, like, I only cover what I find to be fascinating. And if I think, oh my God, this feels like a smoking gun, I'm going to put it in there, and I'm going to do my best to find the most, credible window that I can offer in order to present this information. So I take no credit for this, because all that it is what I view to be the most fundamentally extraordinary facts left out of all of these official cases in terms of the narrative itself, right?
Right.
And through that alternative, plausible alternative avenue, I essentially kind of figure out which direction I will go next. And I love that, because it does feel like I'm almost just, it's like I basically just kind of pray for gratitude for the opportunities that I have, right? Because just to have these conversations, and I think that when you're really trying to remain in that state of mind where you're essentially, just I would say consistently viewing the world through this attitude of gratitude, then it allows you to not quite have the, I don't know, emotional, just devastating falling out in terms of how a lot of this can ultimately affect you. Now, I think you have to have, obviously, a group of individuals surrounding you at a certain level where you can have those conversations in an honest and objective way, or otherwise, if not having stability or someone to rely upon, and then I think you're far more liable to essentially, just start. I don't know. The demoralization might legitimately take root. Is the only point that I'm trying to make. But anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. But I will say that the only point I want to make remaining in terms of this Evie's Crib blog is disgusting, and I might as well finish the actual, most extraordinary fact. But anyway, so it goes private, right? And the pictures were archived, okay, at this point, because before the blog went private, the pictures were at least archived and exposed an unusual picture of Tamara surrounded by young children. And above the picture, it reads, Grand Tam and the Lusatettes. With a headline under Evie's Crib that says, Evelyn is growing up. Soon she will be the queen of the entire US of A. Right now, for a limited time only, you can spend some time with her online, raw and uncut. Take advantage of this now, as in the future she will have the power of life and death over you. In the email Tamara Lozado sent to John Podesta, she tells him, quote, I'm popping up again to share our excitement about the reprise of our gang's visit to the farm in Lovettsville. We plan to heat the pool, so a swim is a possibility. Donnie will be the Uber service to transport Ruby, Emerson, and Maeve Luzado, 11, 9, and almost 7, so you'll have some further entertainment, and they will be in the pool for sure. I am CCing Trudy to repeat the invite and sending pining wishes you could come to Rima, John P., and Lori and Chris. So that's just one example, right, of how the hell these individuals are legitimately using this coded language, to hide in plain sight. And even during Pizzagate, people have the audacity to just
float off like it's nothing. And you know what I was thinking about the other day was the whole spirit cooking thing.
Oh man, Marina.
Right. And it's like that just got blown off like it was nothing. And it's like, do you realize exactly how strange that actually is? This is not normal.
No, man. No, it's not. And like, Abramovich, man, she got her own specific chapter in the Podesta connections of Pizzagate, obviously. Dear Tony, she says, I'm so looking forward to the spirit cooking dinner at my place. Do you think you will be able to let me know if your brother is joining? All my love, Marina. It's just like, my God, dude. And what is spirit cooking refers to a sacrament in the religion of Thelema, which was founded by occultist Aleister Crowley and involves an occult performance during which menstrual blood, breast milk, urine, and sperm are used to create a piece of artwork. The original idea, the original idea was that the fluids would provide a medium connecting spirits to the material world. Man.
Sounds like fucking magic to me. It sounds like a ritual to me.
Black magic, my brother.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy to me. So I got this quote pulled up. I wanted to make sure and read is from William Sargent. And it says, the methods of religious initiations are often so close to modern political techniques of brainwashing and thought control that one sheds light on the mechanisms of the other.
My God. That is just they say it out loud. They're perfectly in my opinion they're proud and overconfident as well, but
yeah, it's just like
not so.
Flipping off the families.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's just like they don't hide it other than I think so. I just had a great conversation with William Ramsey about the occult connection to the West Memphis 3, right? And he brought it to a beautiful conclusion, is that it seems like the Ash experiment, where the entire group says that line A is the longest one when actually it's line C.
Oh my God.
But then the one person that understands that line C is the longer one goes along with the group because that's what the group says. So basically everyone says, oh, spirit cooking's normal. So all of a sudden it becomes normal because the group says it is. But we all know it's not, right? Or the satanic ritual abuse is not happening, but we all know it is because we see it and we hear about it, but the group says that it's not happening. So we just, okay, it's the Ash experiment en masse.
Man, I think
brilliant. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, honestly, I do. And honestly, it's just so hollow morally in every way. These occult belief systems and ideologies, right? That the duality, all of this strange, you know, the inversion process of the, I think the moral fabric of all of society is essentially in jeopardy in that framework. But you have just with the Abramovich, you had mentioned the spirit cooking, and man, her 1997 multimedia spirit cooking installation is insane. If you actually go through it, it's originally installed in Rome, Italy, and it included white gallery walls with enigmatically violent recipe instructions painted in pig's blood. Now, one portion of the gallery wall read, "With a sharp knife cut deeply into the middle finger of your left hand, eat the pain." Another portion of the installation was complete with an effigy of an infant covered in pig's blood, which read, "Fresh morning urine, sprinkle over nightmare dreams." Another part of the gallery wall reads, "Mix fresh breast milk with fresh sperm milk, drink on earthquake nights." Although the Q in the word earthquake is oddly shaped like the number 2. Numerous high-profile celebrities and politicians obviously been photographed attending many of Abramovich's spirit cooking dinners and participating in what looks to be this violent cannibalistic consumption of a bloody human corpse left devoured, right? Is legitimately what they represent. And Marina, yeah, she developed quite the unique reputation, obviously. But yeah, I just have to say, man, the amount that these individuals overexpose themselves, right, I think is their downfall. And thank God that, you know.
What is that quote that they like their downfall will be the symbolism or whatever?
Right. Yeah, I forget the actual quote, but I know what you're. I think that that at least provides me with hope moving forward.
Same.
Because how often do we legitimately gain a credible glimpse into this underworld? I mean, it's too often, right? And and now I'm just trying to come to terms with what world I'm living in, you know.
Well, and see, here's what gives me hope. The fact that we're sitting close to 200 viewers, the fact that you and I are sitting here, the fact that Already Dead is successful, the fact that you, me, and Jose all have independently successful shows. These are the things that give me hope, because that shows me that there are people out there, once again, the audience, that we're not alone. We also, like, we see through the bullshit, right? And I do, there's a certain amount that I don't blame people, because we are under constant psyop after propaganda, after mind control. So there's a certain amount, you know, that the benefit of the doubt, I guess, is what I give to the general public, a little bit, not all of it completely, because, you know, free will and all that, but there's a certain amount. It's like, I can't blame a lot of this on people, but once you know, you better wake up and do something about it.
Exactly.
And I see a lot of people, whether it's spreading or not, I don't know. I go back and forth on that, but there are other people out there. And so there's other people that see through this. And I honestly believe that it's a gift to be able to see through the bullshit, because we could be one of the people that could be blinded by this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's, again, I think, the level of just desperation in terms of the appetite for objective truth. I think that's honestly it. Is there's an overwhelming appetite for just to know that, man, you're acting in good faith, right? I don't have to question your you know, your intentions, right? Because, man, doesn't that feel so great whenever you feel like you find someone that you can trust in that way? And because I feel overexposed to the latter, right? And I am so sick and tired of trying to discern for myself, right? And so honestly, because this is the position that we're unfortunately put in inherently due to the power paradigm and the level of propaganda. But the point being is that what provides me with the hope is that you can easily witness for yourself the level of just desperation and, you know, the extraordinary appetite for objectively pursuing the truth in this moment, and being able to acknowledge the fact that you aren't trying to deceive me. You're just legitimately learning. That's how I feel. Everything that I present, I'm learning from myself, and these are basically the most extraordinary points that convinced me otherwise, right? And that's what I would hope to share with any and all of you as often as I can, and hopefully in the most efficient and effective way. But it's not always the case. You know what I mean? But still, the hope lies in the willingness and desperation to legitimately, you know, find individuals who have integrity intact and are legitimately pursuing the truth with the best of intentions, and only hope for the best in terms of global society in general. Like that's my whole point last night, discussing ideological differences and the level of eagerness in terms of individuals captured by ideology, being willing to sacrifice their opposition or enemy in those terms. Man, you're sick. You're sick, and you're entirely, I would say, just you know, fraught with a mind disease, right? It, like, legitimately at this point, it feels like,
it's like spiritually sick.
Yes.
Like this is the sort of stuff that makes me believe in spirit, you know.
Yeah.
Like this is battle on the spiritual realm, because I mean it's in the physical as well, but it's so much more than that. You know?
Exactly, man.
It's the battle for the mind and the spirit and the body, and it's
And
just that trinity that I don't know, dude. It's just wild. It's wild to me.
I agree.
And the fact that we can see it, like I said, I think it's a gift. I think it's a gift. It's kind of a curse, you know. We can see it and other people can't. But
Exactly.
also, you know, I try not to make things like too religious or whatever, because whatever, you know, every individual path is whatever, you know, each person's individual path. But in the Bible, it does say that there are people who do have the gift to be able to see through the lies and the deception, and that at some point the entire earth will be shoved into that. And the cognitive dissonance that people are going to experience, it's going to be so painful. And so basically the people that can see through the deception are actually brought here to try and prevent that and wake up as many people as possible. And so it does kind of feel like we're on a greater mission to spread the word as far as we possibly can. And honestly, I'm honored to be able to do this with you and share this with everyone here.
Man, thank you, brother. And I feel the same way. I just feel like we're finally past the point, as in terms of, I think people are now far more willing than ever before to confront the existence of evil in a real way.
Oh, yes,
and
I would agree.
Thank God for that. You know, it's like, honestly, I think we're far beyond, you know, the point in which I feel like that is necessary. But thank God it's happening at a certain extent. And so once again, we're forced to acknowledge the darkest, abhorrent phenomenon we should never be willing to accept. Right.
Right.
And that is, it leaves us with no other option than to expose the corrupt nature of the state, honestly. And
amen.
And so, as much as I feel black-pilled sometimes, I am filled with hope and inspiration to keep on this path. And it's because of conversations like this, man. So thank you, brother. And let's get a part 2 scheduled ASAP, and we'll get to have a little bit more fun, you know, getting into more of the details. And hopefully I haven't eaten all day, so I'm about to die. And hopefully my ideas will be a little bit more, you know, free flowing and accessible the next time around. I won't be, Anyway, I feel like
I think you did a good job. But yeah, let's wrap it up here, and let's get a part 2 going, because I think it really is worth it to spend the time to look at Stephen Newberry. And I mean, dude, we could do a whole episode just on McMartin itself. So,
I agree.
You know,
Yeah, I agree.
That's why I haven't even touched McMartin on my.
I didn't
channel
touch it either. Oh, really?
I haven't touched it yet because I just know and I know what's gonna come like when I do it. Like the haters are coming out of the woodworks.
Oh man,
So,
and it's a tough one too. You know.
Oh yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
and that's there's a few of those. Yeah, and I will say, all right, nothing but love, brother. And again, this reminded me of Hosanna, the Hosanna Church scandal as well. Just the details there, they overlap so directly with the details we were kind of describing in terms of these other cases. But anyway, I love all of you, and I cannot thank you enough for being willing to. And just be open-minded, remain open-minded, and then also to question sources and reflect on your own ideas. I think, man, those are the most beautiful kind of people that I want to surround myself with as often as possible. So, again, I love you, Jacob, and I love all of you in the chat, and I hope nothing but the best for all of you and your families as well. And yeah, we'll get this scheduled, and then also just for everyone, so you know, I think as of now, I should be also doing another show with Richard Gage tomorrow on 9/11. So that'll be very interesting. If for some reason we have to reschedule, I'll let you all know. But that as of now, that's the plan. So I think tomorrow around noon, I'm supposed to have a Richard on, so we'll have a fun conversation. But yeah, you got anything you want to plug, and then we'll get out of here, my friend.
Yeah, so I mean, every Wednesday on my channel is Satanic Panic is Real, is the series that I'm running with. It's going to end up being hundreds of episodes because we're going through every last brick of the Satanic Panic. And then typically I do shows Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then not to mention Already Dead on Tuesday. So I've got a pretty stacked week usually. But the best place you can find me is allmylinks.com/rise to liberty. Find me on X, Instagram, Telegram, all the places, Spotify, Apple, all the places. It's anywhere Rise to Liberty, or you can go to risetoliberty.store and go pick up some sweet merch. So,
oh yeah, I've been trying to put all those links that you just mentioned in the below in the details. So if anybody needs to check those out, they're easily available. So I appreciate you, brother. And again, everyone, as we remain in the underclass, right, moving forward, we can at least consistently have conversations worthwhile, poking holes and drawing attention to, honestly, the most sinister agenda that is active and obviously alive and well and affecting and plaguing all of modern society. So I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. So have a good night, Jacob. Thank you again, my friend.
Anytime, brother.